There are moments in some people's lives when a sudden understanding dawns on their minds. Some call it a sixth sense. Others are convinced it's a divine revelation. The girl, sitting on her bed, wonders what exactly is happening to her. It's hard to say for sure, but one thing is clear. She feels a strange confidence. The young lady slowly approaches the mirror. Looking at her reflection, she realizes that she has found herself in the world of one of the novels, and even guesses which one. A vague realization dawns on her. She must be Alice Esteban now. She feels her body giving way from weakness. With trembling hands, she wonders why she found herself here at this particular time and in this particular place. Then she bursts into tears and, almost with delight, realizes that this really happened. What she had been waiting for her whole life. The maids, hearing her screams, exchange glances, saying it seems the mistress has finally come to her senses. One of them wonders where the mistress got so much strength after 3 days of fever. The maids understand that now hell begins for them again, because life was calm while the mistress remained in bed. Meanwhile, the girl remembers that the novel she found herself in was called The Tyrant Silver Flower. This is a story for adults, about crazy obsession, strange love, passion, and the suffering of men. There's drama, captivity, and explicit scenes, but the author's beautiful style made the reader forgive even the darkest plot. She recalled how, over the 2 years she followed the book, she experienced all the quarrels, misunderstandings, and tragedies along with the characters. And finally, she reached the neat, long-awaited ending, where everything she loved so much was fully revealed. But now the young lady realizes something unexpected has happened. At that moment, the doctor enters and greets her. He inquires about her well-being, asking if she can breathe easier. The girl realizes that it is Evan Elgar standing before her. This is Mikhail's older brother, and he is Alice's doctor. The lady examines him carefully. She notes refinement and severity in him, and therefore it is surprisingly pleasant to look at him. If you think about it, the situation isn't that bad, although it's sad that she hasn't had the chance to meet the main characters yet. But she's certain it will happen sooner or later. The doctor, meanwhile, watches her behavior with concern. He wonders if the girl's mind has been clouded by illness, but she decides that it doesn't matter now. There are more important things to do. After all, Alice Esteban appears in the plot on the very day when the main characters first cross paths. And almost immediately, her character falls into an eternal sleep. The girl almost cries, realizing the irony of fate. The doctor, seeing her condition, is horrified by how drastically his patient has changed. Alice realizes her life is in danger. At that moment, a woman's scream is heard in the room. The woman pours water on the young man, accusing him of daring to look at her with such a look. The scarlet-haired lady sharply orders him to remember his place, clutching a whip in her hand. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door, and she tells the newcomer not to linger. The maid enters the room, sheepishly apologizing. The woman irritably reminds him that she asked him not to disturb her. She asks if the maid didn't understand the order, but she justifies herself by saying that the young lady has gotten worse. The lady asks if she is on the brink of life and death, but the maid replies that the cold is severe, but not fatal. Then the woman says that it is better not to take risks if the disease is really contagious. After this, she orders to inform her as soon as the girl is fully recovered, and the maid quickly agrees. The lady then turns to Edwin and coldly tells him that he should think twice if he wants to last much longer. If he wants to save his life, he must obey her unquestioningly. The young man remains silent, containing his irritation. The woman adds contemptuously that, apart from his mother's appearance, he is nothing to be proud of, and in her eyes he is simply a slave. With these words, she leaves, leaving the boy alone. Meanwhile, the protagonist recalls the events of the novel. Then the girl would order one of the servants to do something, and he would ask, dumbfounded, why he had to do it. The blonde replied that it was an order, and her word was law, Mikhail exclaimed in response. He said that this was wrong, because he was not her servant and was not obliged to obey her every whim. He was indignant that she should stop beating people to the point of exhaustion. but the blonde responded by slapping him in the face. The girl ordered Mikhail to help the young man and added that there was no point in judging her. She was simply letting off some pent-up steam. The young lady remarked with a slight smile that it would be extremely unpleasant if the guy decided to plunge into eternal sleep forever. After these words, she, without hesitation, directed the fair-haired youth to the chambers where Edwin was. But at that very moment, a brunette covered in scarlet liquid appeared in front of Mikhail and coldly ordered him to get away. Mikhail felt fear, but he still came closer, put down the suitcase, and calmly said that he understood that he had probably already resigned himself to eternal sleep. However, he added that he would only be able to get out of there once he had healed the victim. But the brunette again irritably ordered him to get lost. Despite this, Mikhail took off his shirt and said that no one could live long with such wounds, but the young gentleman would definitely pull through, after which he used magic. But she suddenly entered into resonance with the damage, and at that very moment, she herself wounded Mikhail, causing a flash of pain. The young lady, hearing a strange sound, screamed in fright, not understanding what had happened, and turned around abruptly. A scene appeared before her eyes. Mikhail was holding a bloody brunette in his arms, and the girl screamed, demanding that she stay away. But it was too late. Edwin, overcome with anger, could not restrain himself, and plunged her into a deep, eternal sleep. Now the main character wakes up with a severe pain in her head, and realizes that the first task is simply to survive, and the second is to prevent the main characters from sending Alice into eternal sleep again. Meanwhile, the doctor informs the young lady that she is almost healthy. He adds that the examination is no longer necessary, but advises her to rest for now and not overexert her body. The girl notices that the doctor's manner of speech is restrained, and his face is emotionless, as if he always maintains a cold calm. However, when a 7-year-old girl commits such indecencies, even the most patient people stop feeling sorry for her. The main character only sighs heavily, and the doctor, noticing her depressed state, frowns slightly. He says that now you can give up the liquid diet, although pork is still heavy, chicken or beef will do. The blonde quietly replies that she understands and mentally thanks him for his concern, although she feels slightly embarrassed. She thinks that the doctor may not like her, but he is conscientious and sincere in his efforts to help. At this moment, the young lady remembers something and realizes that she is now only 7 years old, and in the novel, in a year, everything will change. Evan, while working as a medic at war, falls into an eternal sleep, and the Duke takes in his younger brother, Mikhail. This is where the main plot begins. Now she is wondering if such a handsome young man will really die in the war, and at that moment someone informs her that the mistress has come to see her. The main character assumes that it is Karina, turns around and sees in front of her a woman of indescribable beauty, with long ruby hair, but her look is full of rage, and she immediately turns to the doctor. The woman asks if the girl is okay, and the fair-haired young man calmly replies that yes, she just needs a little more rest. Then the lady notices that the girl has a naturally weak body, and the young heroine feels that the scent of perfume does not hide the slight smell of rot. She realizes this woman had recently visited Edwin. The lady says she's glad to see the girl's condition improving. Then she adds that Alice must obey the doctor in everything, and not cause him unnecessary difficulties. The young lady obediently agrees because she remembers the plot of the novel, where her mother paid almost no attention to her. The woman leaves, and the doctor, looking at Alice, gently reminds her of something important. He says that she should eat well and take a little walk, because lying down for a long time will only slow down her recovery. However, the girl weakly says that she has absolutely no appetite, which greatly surprises the doctor. The girl realizes that walking alone is boring, so she decides not to go. She then turns to Evan, telling him he can go, and he calmly agrees. Leaving the room, he thinks something is clearly wrong with her. The illness this time was truly severe, and his anxiety persists. But she's only 7 years old, and her parents haven't shown her the slightest attention since birth. The boy sighs heavily, feeling pity. He then turns to the maid, explaining that Lady Alice said she was not hungry yet. He adds that during such periods, it is especially important to carefully select a diet so as not to harm her health. The maid, surprised, clarifies that the girl can't be hungry. Just recently, before his arrival, she ate 3 bowls of potato soup. After these words, the guy falls silent, and at this time the young lady is enthusiastically drawing in her room, looking intently at the sheet of paper. At some point, she abruptly puts down her pencil, exhaling tiredly, then carefully examines the drawing. A satisfied smile appears on her face, because, in her opinion, if everything goes exactly this way, then everything will definitely work out well. The girl calls Anna, asking if she is nearby, and soon hears a calm answer that the maid is here. After this, Anna enters the room and sees her mistress sitting in a chair. The maid looks tense, unsure why she was called. The lady, noticing her confusion, realizes that Anna's thoughts are literally written on her face. She looks at her softly. Anna quietly says that she is listening to the lady, and the lady replies with a smile that she has a small request. Sometime later, the red-haired lady is already getting ready to go somewhere. At this moment, one of the maids approaches her. She assures the lady that she will be the most beautiful woman at the reception. The lady smiles, and the maid happily says she's already looking forward to it. After all, the mistress will be making her first public appearance. The main character watches her, and the maid continues to enthusiastically say that she will be the highlight of the celebration. Alice sighs quietly, thinking that going to such a big celebration without an invitation is too bold. As before, Karina is getting ready for her summer vacation, where noble ladies from high society gather in a luxurious palace. This annual event lasts for several days, and Karina could never have dreamed of being a part of it before. The Duke, as her former master, strictly forbade her to appear before him, considering her too wayward and impudent. The main character understands that Karina will not be the star of the evening, but only an object of ridicule among the noble ladies. Karina turns to the maid, asking if she is sure that she knows the layout of the palace well. The maid confidently replies that she's checked everything several times. Then the main character approaches her mother. She asks if she's going somewhere. The woman calmly says she's leaving and asks her daughter to stay home and be quiet. The girl agrees, but soon the doctor enters the room. As he bows, the woman passes by and leaves. The young lady greets Evan, who wishes her good morning in return. She says that her mother has left and adds that she will probably not be home for quite a long time. Evan remarks that there is still a lot of time before the Duke arrives, and the girl agrees and suggests that this is why her mother left. She adds that she's doing well and needs to allow herself a little joy sometimes. The doctor is surprised by her cheerfulness. The girl thinks that everything is going great, and now everything will really work out as she planned. After a short while, the doctor finishes his examination and announces that he is leaving, and the young lady says with a smile that they will see each other again. Evan lets out a heavy sigh as he leaves the room, remembering how he claimed the illness had completely receded. He reminded her that if she became a little more active, she could recover in about a month. He would then ask her if she was taking the supplements he prescribed, and the girl would happily assure him that she had not missed a day. With a smile, she even asks if she's doing well. The guy looks around the room, amazed by its size and emptiness. For the first time, he understands how lonely the little princess lives within these luxurious walls. After some time, the girl comes out into the garden and admiringly notes that it looks like a living painting. A few days ago, she asked Anna for 2 things: a strong lock and a map leading to the place where Edwin was being held. She plans to put up a new lock so that only she can enter and protect the guy, at least for a little while. The girl wants to show him she can be good so he won't think about her death anymore. Perhaps she can even teach him some manners. She decides that this is exactly what she will do, because her goal is to make his obsession a little softer and more human. The girl walks on, thinking how sad it is without her main characters. She's only 7 years old. Edwin is 8, Mikhail is 5, and only she, since childhood, has been that very villain that now makes her laugh. But soon she notices that she's been walking for a long time, and the distance doesn't seem to be getting any closer. Looking at the tower, the young lady wonders why it isn't getting any closer. But then she exclaims in confusion, realizing she's not even halfway there. She wonders why they even need such vast territories if the end of the road is still so far away. She also wonders if this might be a dangerous challenge for a 7-year-old. It's strange to be tired so early. Aren't children supposed to be more resilient and energetic than adults? The girl wonders why everything went wrong almost from the very beginning. But, realizing that despondency will only slow her down, she decides to push away her anxious thoughts and continue on her way. By evening, fatigue literally knocks her off her feet, but despite this, she realizes that she has finally reached her goal, because a high tower is visible right in front of her. Gathering her last strength, she opens the door, but instead of joy, she laughs nervously, realizing that the trials are not over yet. Something unexpected awaits her ahead. Before her, a seemingly endless staircase, and the girl sighs in exasperation. After some time, the tired young lady finally lies down on the bed, feeling her whole body ache. The maid gently rubs her legs, asking if she feels any better. She replies that the pain hasn't gone away completely, but she feels pleasantly tired. The brunette notes that the mistress seems to have overexerted herself. The girl agrees, adding that she feels much better now thanks to Anna's care, for which she sincerely thanks her. The maid smiles and asks if the mistress is going to go for a walk again and whether she should prepare everything. As usual, the blonde nods affirmatively, remembering that 10 days have passed since her first unsuccessful attempt, and now she feels more confident. Then she recalls how, after her first workout, she lay in bed for 2 days due to severe pain. Then she only managed to make it halfway, but now she has her own tricks. At that moment, someone announces that Dr. Evan has arrived to see the lady. The girl orders him in, deciding a consultation wouldn't hurt. The young man enters the room and notices that his mistress has lost weight again. He expresses concern but tries not to show undue concern. He asks how the young lady is feeling, because the changes are visible to the naked eye. She replies, slightly wearily, that life isn't easy, but it can be managed. Then the doctor, shocked by her words, reminds her that she's only 7 years old. The girl simply thinks he won't understand her pain, mostly muscular. The doctor sighs heavily, and she notices that his behavior has changed recently. Even when she was in a state of perpetual sleep, he kept repeating that she was ruining her health. Now he has become softer and more attentive, and the young lady, although she had doubts at first, now clearly understands that all this is just an expression of pity. The doctor writes something down in his notebook and mentions that he heard about her recent walks. He asks what she usually does there, and the girl calmly replies that she simply runs into the garden, where she hides from everyone. Alice admits that she doesn't like this estate, and barely holding back her tears, adds the reason no one loves her here. She says this on purpose, wanting to evoke at least a drop of compassion, hoping that they will finally feel sorry for her. The doctor proclaims with surprise that this is not true, but his voice sounds uncertain, because he does not know how to lie. The young lady calmly reminds him that he himself knows how right she is, and that there really is no room for warmth in this house. She confesses to Evan that she is having a hard time being alone, and although she doesn't know how it will all end, she decides to try to change her situation. Turning to the window, the girl thinks about how much she would like to find a friend her own age so that she wouldn't feel so sad. After a while, the doctor suggests postponing the conversation until tomorrow and gets ready to leave. The girl agrees and says she enjoyed talking to him. Before leaving, he says with a slight smile that he is sure that the lady will definitely find friends. She just has to wait a little. When he leaves, the young lady thanks him and, as soon as the door closes behind him, instantly jumps out of bed. She approaches the door, watching him walk away, wondering if her plan worked and if he has guessed her intentions. Then she decides that the doctor should introduce her to Mikhail. Perhaps this will help her get rid of her suffering. She also wonders if he thought she was being bullied, because then everything would have looked completely different. The next day, the girl prepares for another foray into the tower. She warms up thoroughly and, feeling a surge of energy, happily thinks that she is ready to begin a new search. To make the walk more fun, the girl picks up a twig and ponders what would happen if she considered it a good luck charm. Now this branch seems to become her personal reward, and she runs happily, feeling like a winner, as if she had won the lottery. After some time, she again finds herself at the foot of the tower, and, catching her breath, thinks with annoyance about how far this path really is. The young lady entered the room cautiously and ran her hand along the wall, feeling the unevenness and realizing that the key was hidden somewhere here. The girl continued searching and finally came across a secret recess, took out a key from there and opened the lock. Feeling anxious, she immediately realized that the protagonist must be locked behind the door, and her heart began to beat faster as she slowly pushed the door open. A sharp, unpleasant smell hit the room, causing the girl to hold her nose, but curiosity was stronger, and she nevertheless went inside. A thin young man stood before her, almost motionless, and Alice froze, overcome with shock at the state of the young man she saw. She came closer, trying to figure out if he was alive, and with tears in her eyes, she noticed that the guy was not responding, which only increased her anxiety. The girl tried not to believe the worst, thinking that he could not have fallen into eternal sleep when the young man suddenly extended his hand to her. Suddenly, he collapsed to the floor, his gaze furious, and Alice felt a chill of fear, barely restraining herself from trembling from the unexpected movement. The guy raised his hand to her neck, and the girl realized the danger. He was going to plunge her into a kind of eternal sleep, and her heart began to beat faster. In complete horror, Alice pushed him away, trying to scream for him to stop, and the young man only lost his balance and fell to the floor. The girl addressed him by name, seeing that he was still alive, but had simply lost consciousness, and relief was mixed with concern for his condition. She clutched the hand with the scar on her skin, realizing that there was no time to waste and that she needed to return to the estate immediately to deal with the situation. Leaving the boy in the tower, Alice returned to the estate, and in the evening, when she arrived there, she felt relieved, but she knew that she had to act carefully. The doctor began to treat the wound and carefully asked how the lady had managed to get injured, carefully assessing her condition. The girl said that she fell from a tree, catching herself on the branches, but the young man remained silent, realizing that he would have been sure of the truth if the wounds had been on her knees. In fact, these were marks similar to scratches from human nails, but the wounds were not too deep, so the doctor insisted on taking medication and rest. He explained the correct dosage to Anna, and the young lady promised not to forget to take her medication, after which the doctor left the room, leaving her alone. Alice realized that Duke Esteban had only one son, who was born with black hair, unlike either his mother or his father. Despite the fact that the Duchess had wheat-colored hair and the Duke had blonde hair, the young man did not at all resemble his parents, which immediately became the cause of trouble. He was stripped of his status as heir and locked in a tower after falsely accusing his mother of an extramarital affair, and the Duchess died in childbirth, leaving the boy alone. Karina, a former maid, became the Duke's new wife, but suffered from feelings of inferiority due to her status and constantly compared herself to her former wife. She had previously served the Duchess, so bullying a boy from a great family gave her a special pleasure, a feeling of power over him. It was because of her cruelty and indifference that the young man grew up withdrawn and embittered, which was the result of years of bullying and humiliation. Now, Alice considered all these people a damn pile of trash, realizing that seeing a child in such a state was much more terrible than just reading about his suffering. The young lady firmly decided that she would try to help him at least a little and restore at least some hope for life, despite the difficulty of the situation. The next day, the young man continued to sit in the tower, lost in thought until he heard quiet, cautious steps approaching the door. Alice entered the room with a large backpack, carefully stepping over the threshold and preparing for another attempt to establish contact with the young man. She took out a tray and carefully laid out the food on it, after which she took out a long stick from her backpack for her own protection, trying to be prepared for the unexpected. The girl pushed the tray towards the boy, asking if he was hungry, and noted that it contained water, bread, and some fruit, all prepared with care for his well-being. The young man remained silent, but Alice assured herself that she had chosen the softest foods that his stomach could digest, and hoped that he would try at least a little. She also took out some medicine and thought about how to carefully treat him, although she understood that it would not be easy to completely overcome the disease. The girl cautiously asked if she could come closer, but the young man did not answer, remaining silent, leaving Alice anxiously awaiting a reaction. She took a step forward, but noticed the furious gaze of the young man, full of distrust and hidden threat, which made her freeze in place. His red eyes startled the young lady, and she quickly turned away, determined to return tomorrow with another attempt to establish contact. The next day, she brought a second tray, but noticed that there was still some food left on the first one that the young man had not touched. On the third day, the story repeated itself, and on the fourth, she saw that the food from the first day had already spoiled, and she immediately put it away, taking care of cleanliness and order. On the fifth day, the tray appeared before the boy again, carefully placed so that he could see the girl's concern, but the habit of remaining silent continued. On the sixth day, everything remained the same, and Alice sat opposite the young man, watching him and trying to figure out how to win his trust. The boy still hadn't touched his food, and the girl addressed him by his name, Edwin, trying to elicit at least some kind of reaction and start a dialogue. She asked if he could eat at least a piece, but the young man remained silent, and Alice realized that she needed to think of a way to quickly bring Mikhail to help the guy. The young man watched carefully as Alice sat, immersed in thoughts and reflections, maintaining a silence that only increased the tension in the room. At this time, the Duchess was returning to the estate, and a beaten maid was sitting next to her, which caused a strong feeling of anxiety and indignation in the girl. The woman suddenly screamed, which startled the maid, and the red-haired lady screamed furiously, indignant at how these pathetic people dared to mock others. Now she bears the title of Duchess, and is no longer a simple servant, and the servant at this moment turns to his mistress with a request to calm down, trying to soften the situation. But Karina screams, demanding silence from the servant, because it is impossible to calm down in such a position. The maid immediately apologizes, explaining that she did not mean to offend anyone, and then a new thought occurs to her. She suggests that the lady go to the tower, claiming that things will get easier there, and after that, Karina orders the coachman to take them there. However, after some time, the Duchess returns to the estate already irritated and dissatisfied. The butler greets the lady and tries to communicate something important, but the woman reacts sharply. She strikes him in the face, after which the butler, with surprising calm, despite the wound, asks for forgiveness and asks why it was done. Karina demands that he stop pretending not to understand and exclaims about who changed the lock on the tower without her knowledge. The butler clarifies the details while the main character slowly climbs the stairs. The girl tells her mother that she was the one who did it and then asks how her vacation in the tower went. The woman is surprised to learn that it was the work of a young lady who confirms that she did it all herself. Karina notices that the girl calls her mother and not mom, and asks why Alice did that. The young lady explains that she just felt like it, and her mother, surprised, asks what exactly she means. The girl says that without her mother she was bored and lonely, so she went to the tower to find entertainment. There she found herself a toy, namely, she claims that now Edwin will belong only to her. She warns that there is no point in arguing with this, and that it would be better for Mother not to even try to touch him. The woman notices that the joke becomes unfunny when it drags on, and addresses this remark to her daughter. She asks if it has been too long since the girl was punished, and this slightly frightens the young lady. The woman demands that the girl give up the key and stop causing her grief, but the main character replies that she knows one of her mother's secrets, and asks if she is afraid that the girl will reveal it to the servants. After this, they enter the Duchess's room, and the woman asks her daughter to tell her what she has come up with this time. Alice insists that she knows her mother's secret, and her mother asks if this is really true. The young lady clarifies that she knows the secret of Edwin's birth, and does not need an explanation from her mother. She realizes that Edwin is the Duke and Duchess's true son, and she keeps this knowledge to herself. The woman gets up from her seat and approaches the girl, demanding an explanation of where she learned this, quote, nonsense. Alice refuses to answer and states that she wants to take Edwin so that his mother does not harm him, so she will not give up the key. The girl adds that if her mother continues to insist, even the Duke himself will find out the secret, but the woman considers this absurd. She asks the young lady if she believes the Duke will believe her, and this slightly frightens Alice. In the end, the woman lets her daughter go, saying that she didn't expect anything else from her. She admits that she understands Alice's loneliness, which makes her do such things. At the same time, the mother promises to turn a blind eye to the current antics, but warns that her patience is not infinite, and leaves. The young lady falls to the floor, realizing that Edwin's hair has changed color due to Karina's actions. After all, if a woman is given a certain plant during pregnancy, the baby's hair may darken. This tea from the distant country of Roubaix, which Karina looked after, was mixed with the usual drink for the Duchess. The weed was bought in a dark alley for a large sum of money, and its side effects included poor blood clotting. Because of this, the Duchess fell into an eternal sleep during childbirth, and even if she had survived, she would have been exiled for treason. Thus, it is Karina who is to blame for what happened to Edwin and the Duchess's condition. The main character can't believe that she has become the daughter of such a woman, but so far there have been no problems. The young lady closes her eyes, thinking of Edwin, and hopes to hear his voice tomorrow. That same evening, she has a dream where she is sitting at a table and wondering where the Duke and her mother are, and whether anyone will come. The man apologizes to her and tells her that the Duke has gone to the imperial palace on business and that his mother is busy. After a short time, the servant brings the girl to Edwin, explaining that the mother usually devotes almost all her attention to the child. Mom, unfortunately, has already fallen into eternal sleep, and the blonde is tightly clutching her teddy bear in her arms. She throws it at Edwin, wondering who he is and why he's looking at her like that. The girl thinks that it would be better if he disappeared and also plunged into eternal sleep so as not to disturb her. The next morning, the young lady opens her eyes and sighs, remembering the events. A little later, she heads into the garden and realizes that the dream makes no sense and wonders why she only remembered it now. After all, Alice had already met Edwin before, when she was happy, and that meeting left an unpleasant impression. The girl realized that she would soon completely lose her mind and began to understand that everything that was happening from the very beginning made no sense. At this time, someone approached the young lady, asking what had happened to her. It turned out to be a doctor, and, noticing him, the girl fell silent for a moment, and then turned away abruptly, declaring that it was none of his business. Evan was a little surprised by this reaction, but still suggested that they go for a walk, instead of just lying on the ground. The girl replied that she didn't want to because it was too much trouble, and advised him to stop giving advice if he didn't intend to go with her. The boy said that he was ready to go with her if she wanted, and then the young lady finally rose from the ground. She looked in amazement at the doctor, who sheepishly admitted that he just wanted to take a short walk. At that moment, the girl unexpectedly jumped on his neck, hugging him, after which they headed back to her room together. She explained that he needed to wait while she got ready, and the guy agreed to stay. The young man remained waiting, and soon heard the maids whispering about whether the girl was going to go there again, and another woman confirmed this. One of them noted that the lady goes there almost every day, just like her mother once did, but the interlocutor asked why she takes food with her. She replied that the girl was probably testing the guy's patience by sitting there and eating at the same time, without allowing him to eat. The young man wondered if they were talking about the lady, and a little while later the main character was already walking with the doctor through the garden. He asked where they were going, and the girl realized that he might refuse to go if she said she was going to Edwin. So she just said that she wanted to see her friend and improve her relationship with him, but for now this was impossible due to old problems. She explained that she would need his help, and the guy asked how exactly he could help. The girl replied that he would understand this when they arrived, after which they approached the tower. Opening the door, the young lady noted that Evan got tired quickly, and the guy said that children her age were much more resilient. She smiled and noted that this was just a stupid excuse, after which she began to climb the stairs, and the young man turned to his uncle and asked if she was going to go to the very top. The girl confirmed that she was going and asked what was wrong with Togo, and the guy asked in surprise why. He reminded her, shocked, that this was where Mr. Edwin was being held, and that the girl really wanted to befriend him. She confirmed her intentions. She explained to Evan, and he said it all made sense now, adding that a small child would end up in such a squalid place. The boy thought that he could not even imagine that Mr. Edwin was being kept in such conditions. Alice suggested talking less so that Togo would have enough strength to reach the very top, to which Evan asked the reason, and the girl explained the motive. They began to climb up, and the doctor was already very exhausted. The young lady noted that he would get used to it over time if he went up there a few more times, and the boy, breathing heavily, agreed. Finally, they opened the door and the girl greeted Edwin warmly, remarking that the weather was fine today. When the doctor entered the room, he was struck by a strong smell and was clearly shocked. The girl asked him if he had been scared when they had tried to break in the previous night, and added that she now had a key to the room. The young man carefully watched the guy behind the girl, and the main character explained that Edwin should not worry. She said it was a doctor named Evan who was needed to examine Togo's wounds, and assured him that the guy was a good man and had nothing to be afraid of. The girl turned to Evan but saw that he was feeling unwell because of the smell, and worriedly asked what had happened to him. She wondered if he was having a panic attack since he was only 17 years old. The girl tried to understand how shocking this scene was for such a young guy. She watched him with anxiety, wondering if he would be able to bear everything that was happening and if it would be too much of a test for him. The boy suddenly loses consciousness, and Alice bends over him in a daze, trying to figure out what to do next. She realizes that she can't let him stay like this and begins to look for a way to carefully move him down. The girl lightly slaps him on the cheek and internally calls for him to pull himself together, thinking about how terrible it would be to leave him alone. Alice realizes that each situation seems worse than the last, and carefully takes his chin to bring him closer to Edwin. She apologizes to him and reminds him that she brought sandwiches and fruit today, hoping that he could at least get some food. Alice suddenly notices that she forgot to move the food under the guy's nose, and this causes her slight anxiety and confusion. The girl takes a step back, a little scared, but looking at Edwin, she realizes that there is no danger. She is surprised to realize that the young man is not showing aggression, and the thought flashes through her mind that he trusts her. A smile appears on the girl's face when she realizes that she has succeeded, and carefully takes the doctor onto her shoulders. Alice thinks about tomorrow, deciding to come again so that the young man can eat in peace, and gradually leaves the room. Edwin just looks at the tray of food, and Alice at this time remembers the moment when she picked up a small, defenseless kitten on the street. The kitten was weak, scared, and alone, but after a while he decided to touch the girl's hand for the first time, causing her joy. The happiness then was 10 times less than what she feels now, despite the fatigue and pain. Even though she feels exhausted, Alice continues to smile, realizing that she has entered a new comfort zone. Later, the girl feels muscle pain from having to carry Edwin, but internally accepts it as part of her duty. At this time, the young man apologizes to her, and Alice calms him down, assuring him that everything is fine and she will cope. She asks how Evan is doing, to which he replies that everything is fine, and the girl wonders about his frequent visits. Alice admits that she visits him almost daily, apologizing for not warning him about the visit in advance. She explains that the boy's condition looked grave, and she wanted Evan to be able to examine him. Evan notices that the lady has changed the lock and asks if it has anything to do with the young gentleman, to which Alice confirms. The doctor understands that the changes in the girl are noticeable, although the reasons are unknown to him, and that she seems to have become a different person. Alice cautiously asks if the young man will be able to go there with her again, and Evan agrees but warns that he will not provide full assistance. The blonde asks why this is so, and receives the answer that there is no one to look after her brother, and for now it remains her responsibility. Evan explains that the person he relied on is leaving, and he will have to personally take care of the situation until a replacement arrives. Alice smiles and says that he is unlikely to find a replacement, and the doctor is surprised and asks what she is talking about, but the girl just waves her hand. She asks how old the boy is, and Evan explains that his brother is 6, making him 1 year younger than the lady. The main character looks at the doctor with shining eyes, and he quietly confirms that she will have to take care of Edwina herself. He promises to prepare medicine that will help the young man's wounds heal faster and ease his condition. After some time, Alice comes to the young man again and greets him with a warm smile, feeling relieved. She looks around the room and notices that there don't seem to be any problems with order. But, looking at the tray, the girl is surprised that he has eaten almost everything, which happens for the first time in a long time. Alice takes new dishes out of her bag and carefully hands them to Edwin, continuing to take care of him. She assures him that today's lunch was especially delicious and hopes that he will appreciate her efforts. The young man puts his hand on the soup and begins to eat it directly with his hands, causing the girl slight surprise. Alice is glad that the soup has cooled down while she was carrying it, and realizes that in the future she will have to teach Edwin to eat properly. Sitting next to him, the girl carefully watches his actions and supports him, staying close. She carefully asks if he hates her, but the young man remains silent, not expressing any negative emotions. When Edwin finishes eating, Alice decides to begin treating his wounds, promising not to cause pain. She looks at the boy's legs and arms covered in blood, realizing how grave his condition is, and wants to free him from his shackles. But the magic spell is too strong, and even Karina cannot help, so Mikhail's touch will be needed to awaken the power. Alice carefully touches the young man's leg, and notices that he does not object to her touch, which gives her confidence. The girl then wets a cloth and begins to carefully wipe Edwin's face, noticing how long it has been since this was done. She holds him tighter and applies more effort, gradually becoming tired, but does not stop until the job is done. When the young man's face is finally clear, Alice smiles and gently strokes his head, feeling satisfied with the result. After this, the young man heard someone remark on his unusual appearance, and was slightly surprised, not expecting such words. But soon he turned away completely, leaving the main character confused, wondering whether he liked anything or not. The girl also thought about what to do next, because she still had some medicine left and needed to apply the healing ointment. The young lady approached Edwin, deciding that it would be better to show him how to do everything correctly, and asked him for his attention. She placed the pills on a plate, explaining that they would relieve the pain, and gently reminded the boy not to forget to take them. The girl smeared her hand with a healing ointment, explaining that it should not be drunk, but only carefully spread over the damaged areas of the skin. She also assured him that she would leave if Edwin felt uncomfortable, and asked him to try to repeat her actions exactly as she showed. Every day she intended to bring him delicious food to at least make him happy a little and support him in difficult times. The young man felt a slight embarrassment as he watched the girl leave the room and was left alone again, lost in his thoughts. The next morning, he was still in the room, chained, when he suddenly heard footsteps and the creak of the door opening. The image of the main character appeared in the doorway and said that the weather outside was clear, which lifted the young man's spirits a little. Edwin was delighted to see her, and Alice got out a warm blanket and brought tasty food to ease his condition and create comfort. The young lady looked at the young man carefully, realizing how handsome and important he was to her, the man standing in front of her right now. She picked up one of the books and turned to Edwin, showing it and asking if he knew what it contained to understand his level of knowledge. The boy shook his head, showing that he didn't understand anything, and the girl explained that this book was intended for him to gradually open up the world. She guessed that Edwin had spent his childhood in isolation and therefore knew almost nothing about the world around him, which greatly limited his perception. The young lady decided to start with simple fairy tales and calm stories that would help heal emotional wounds and at least partially restore childhood. She read aloud, and one scene involved the stepmother exclaiming that the hero and heroine were actually brother and sister. The girl stopped at this point, surprised by the content, and was silent for a while, thinking about what she had just read. Having closed the book, she looked carefully at the cover again, trying to understand its meaning and the author's intention, feeling a strange uneasiness. After tearing off the wrapping, the young lady discovered that the real cover hid a not very pleasant picture, and this raised questions about the book. She realized that she had taken the book from Alice's library and wondered why she had read it, wondering about her friend's motives and her choice. Looking at other books, the girl realized that her attempt to return Edvon to a normal childhood had so far completely failed, but she did not lose hope. Despite the failure, she decided not to be upset, assuring herself that she could cope on her own and find the best way to help the young man. The young lady put the strange book aside, advising Edwin to forget its contents so as not to waste time and energy on useless details. She thought about a suitable story that could help the young man survive and strengthen his spirit so that he could gradually overcome his fears and loneliness. A new story began about a girl and a boy who decided to climb a high mountain at night, overcoming darkness and cold for their goal. The lady thought about why they went to this mountain and came up with the idea that they wanted to collect rare wild berries at the top, testing their friendship and courage. They were best friends until suddenly a terrible tiger appeared in front of them, instilling fear and doubt in their courage, threatening danger. The tiger declared his hunger, saying that one of them would become his prey, and asked who was willing to become the victim, testing their inner strength. The girl, with tears in her eyes, offered him to eat her in order to save his friend, but the young man resolutely protested, not wanting to lose a loved one. He knew he couldn't survive the loss of his best friend, and he couldn't just watch what was happening and remain passive in this ordeal. The tiger, seeing the strength of their friendship and determination, was impressed and stepped back, allowing them to live in peace, and the friends continued their lives, finding happiness together. The young lady asked Edwin what he thought of the story and whether he was interested in following the adventures. But the boy looked at her in surprise, not understanding the point. She realized that he hadn't fully grasped the meaning of fairy tales from the very beginning, and explained that a tiger is a big and scary animal to clarify the situation. She described the tiger to him, explaining its fur, claws, and sharp eyes so that Edwin could imagine the fearsome animal and feel the emotions of the characters. The young man suddenly asked if the tiger had a whip, and the lady realized that his fears were very specific, and wondered if it was connected with his memories of Karina. At this time, the young man wonders what real friends are, and the girl thinks that he might be interested in this too, after which she explains that friendship is a relationship like the one she and Edwin have. They always share food with each other, support each other in moments of boredom or loneliness, and this is what makes their connection special and close. The guy then notices that he has done almost nothing for her, and wonders if they can really be considered friends. The main character confidently replies that, of course, they can, because they are already friends, and the most important thing in friendship is caring for each other. She adds that the main thing is not to harm each other, but rather to help and protect, and asks how the guy feels about this. The young man asks if they should really protect each other, and the young lady confirms that he understood correctly, agreeing with him. Then the young man, with a serious expression, declares that he will be able to put the tiger into eternal sleep with his own hands. The girl reacts to this statement with surprise and insists that there is no need to go so far. It is enough to simply not take things to such extremes. Alice understands that perhaps her words were excessive, but overall the situation remained under control, and the guy only smiles after that. He claims that he will protect Alice in any situation, and at this time the Duke is in the capital, minding his own business. He's carefully studying some papers when a servant informs him that a letter has arrived from the main estate. The Duke looks at the text of the letter with slight surprise and wonders if Alice really does visit the tower. The servant confirms this and asks what orders should be given, but the man replies that nothing needs to be done, just ignore it. He understands that he will soon return himself, and at this time, the main character is enjoying time in the garden, realizing that she has not had such a tea party for a long time. The weather was pleasant, the tea was aromatic and delicious. The only problem was the company that sat in front of the girl. Her mother sat opposite her and noted that it had been a long time since they had spent such a relaxing time together, asking if her daughter agreed with this. The young lady replies that she certainly agrees and that she really enjoys this kind of peace and quiet, remembering how long it has been since she had such moments. The woman asks how the girl is doing and whether she is fully recovered, to which the young lady replies that yes, and Evan even praised her yesterday, saying that she has become stronger than she was before her illness. Karina recalls that the girl used to get sick often and doesn't even know who she inherited it from, expressing her doubts and anxiety. The young lady apologizes for causing her mother so much worry and anxiety about her condition. The woman suddenly addresses Alice by name, noting that last time she let everything go, because she had been away from home for a long time and the girl had become lonely. But today she wants to calmly discuss what happened and admits that she was extremely unpleasantly shocked by the threats from the young lady, because such words could cost her mother her life. Alice asks if there were any threats specifically, and claims that she doesn't remember anything like that. The woman explains that when the girl was not given what she wanted, she tried to put her mother in an awkward position and showed stubbornness that looked quite threatening, and asks if the young lady herself thinks the same. The main character then asks if they are talking about Edwin being a son, but the woman interrupts her and reminds her that if anyone hears this nonsense, everything they are currently enjoying could disappear. She warns that the girl doesn't want to end up on the streets begging, so caution is important. The young lady asks why, and claims that she is simply telling the truth. She explains that she and the Duke are very similar to each other. At first it was only noticeable by the color of their eyes, but then she looked at him carefully and was convinced that they were like two peas in a pod, so she had no doubt that he was the Duke's only son. The woman smiles and notes that this is a very interesting observation, adding that she herself first noticed the resemblance to the boy when she noticed his red eyes, a common trait, but if you look hard enough you can find many people who look like the Duke. The young lady doubted the correctness of her words, but her mother firmly declared that she was not mistaken, and warned her daughter not to spread such dangerous rumors anymore. Mother was disgusted by stupidity, and Alice did not want to fall into her disfavor. The girl apologized sincerely, assuring her that this would not happen again, after which the woman extended her hand. She demanded that the young lady hand over the key to the tower, explaining that it was necessary as they would be meeting more often. The little girl cried out that she had much more fun playing with Edwin, but at that point there was a painful pause between them. The woman scratched her nails on the table and declared that she would simply take the keys for safekeeping, since the young lady could lose them. However, the main character replied that this was not necessary, because the keys were kept in a safe, secret place. The woman asked what place exactly they were talking about, and the little girl confirmed that only she knew about it. After some time, the young lady walked back to her room and felt that meetings with this woman were exhausting her more than usual. It's a good thing Alice is only 7 years old, because Karina hasn't planned any complex manipulations yet, and she remains her biological mother. The little girl decided it was best not to provoke the woman further. When she entered the room, she immediately noticed a change in the order of things. She opened the wardrobe with dresses, looked into the nightstand, and quickly realized that someone had already rummaged through everything. And so it turned out. Someone had managed to make a mess there. The girl went out into the hallway and called Anna. She asked if the maid had left, and Anna, slightly surprised, admitted that she had only been gone for a short time. Another maid said that they had prepared a new dessert and she wanted to try it. The girl bowed her head and apologized to the lady, who only smiled, saying that everything was fine and the dessert was delicious. The young lady returned to the room and noted with regret that someone had managed to turn things over while she was gone, and even distracted her attention. But the key wasn't there, so she took the key from Evan. She thanked him, and the guy modestly replied that he was just keeping it for himself. The main character agreed and realized that she was able to protect Evan, and now she needed to arrange a meeting with Mikhail. The girl remembered that there were only 10 days left until the Duke's return, and there was no backup plan yet. The doctor approached the young lady and asked if she would like to go to the tower. The girl agreed and asked what exactly he was proposing. The young man explained that one of his patients had canceled an appointment and he had some free time. He would like to go with her, as the young gentleman had a serious injury. After some time, the young lady was already next to the guy, showing him a picture with a name and asking what it was. When the guy answered correctly, the girl asked him to give her hand, and he obediently did so. The main character hugged him and cried out, admiring his intelligence, after which she turned to the doctor. She asked his opinion on the guy's condition, and Evan confidently noted that he was already remembering new words, which was at least some joy. After which the doctor reaches out to the guy, but he tells him not to touch him. The young man also says with a furious look that otherwise he will plunge the guy into eternal sleep. The doctor then gets scared and asks the lady why the guy is so rude to him, and he answers the main character that everything is fine. And now they are friends, and also agreed that they will not put into eternal sleep those who one of them likes. That's why now she turns to Edwin and says that she likes Evan and asks him not to put him into eternal sleep. After all, this guy is a good person, and he treated her when she was sick. Lena then asks if Alice was sick, and the girl replies that there were times when she felt unwell. The young man then asks if she fell into eternal sleep, and the girl replies that no, and Evan did not allow this to happen, after which she asks if this is true, and the doctor replies that yes, and he did everything possible to make sure the lady was okay. He also understands that who would have thought that they were getting so close, and it's even nice to watch. The next day, the doctor approaches the young lady and states that because of yesterday, he has come to the conclusion that the lady needs to learn normal relationships on her own. For example, when playing with her peers, the girl says okay, but still asks what it means. And the guy then tells Il to come out and say hello. Then the young lady wonders who it is, but when the young man comes out from around the corner, the main character realizes that it is Michael Elgar, and that same second protagonist. The doctor at this point claims it's his brother Mikhail, after which he tells the guy to say hello to Lady Alice, but she only says what a cutie the guy is. However, the young man immediately cries out that he hates the girl and that she's ugly. The doctor is then a little surprised and turns to Il. But the main character then thinks how cute it is, because the guy even has the same character as in the original. After which, she asks if she should start first and asserts that she'd like to be friends with Mikhail. However, the young man simply grabs his brother and tells her to move away because he hates her. However, then Prav immediately turns sternly to Mikhail and suggests that he not say such bad things to the lady, otherwise everyone will think that he is an ill-mannered child. So he also tells Il to apologize. The young lady then thinks about what the doctor calls his brother and realizes she now remembers that it's his nickname. Edwin also called him that, and when one day Mikhail tried to escape from the brunette's grip, he also screamed for him to let go. Then Edwin simply put his hand on his cheek and asserted that now no one could take Isla away from him. And he also belongs to him completely, down to the last hair. Now the young lady only smiles, and the young man at this time claims that Evan always came home late because of this girl, and he hates being alone. The doctor then tries to say something to the guy, but the main character waves her hand and claims that everything is fine, and he can hate her. After which she greets Mikhail again, and claims that her name is Elisa, and that she is often sick, so his brother has to treat her. After which the young lady also apologizes, and the boy then says okay. The girl then asks if he still hates her, and Mikhail just nods. And then Alice asks what to do since she loves Mikhail so much. The young man only becomes embarrassed after that, and he turns away. And the doctor smiles and apologizes to the lady, also asserting that Il is a bit of an odd child, but not to that extent. And he will educate the guy so that he will not buy it again, but the young lady claims that everything is fine and he does not have to scold the guy too much. The doctor then claims that if the girl says that, then can he leave the guy there, since he has many patients today? The young man, shocked, then asks what he's talking about, brother, and the main character replies that the guy can stay. Evan thanks the girl and then says goodbye to his brother and claims that he will be back soon, and also tells Ailu that they will have a delicious dinner together later. The young man still cannot accept that his brother left him like that with this girl. After which he sits on the edge of the blanket and resentfully runs a stick along the ground. But when he sees that the girl is looking at him, he screams out why she is looking at him like that. The young lady then turns to the book and says that it's okay and she won't look at him. However, the boy only became angrier after this, and a little while later he fell asleep altogether. The main character then claims that children fall asleep so easily and realizes she should take advantage of the moment to take a closer look at the boys. The girl also says how cute he is, and a little while later the young man opens his eyes, and when he gets up he asks where his brother is. Well, at that very moment, the main character puts a wreath on his head and claims that she made it herself. The young lady also looks at the boy and realizes that now he looks just like a fairy. After which, she also turns to Evan and hands him the wreath. The doctor asks if it's for him, and the girl replies that it is, and that he should wear it. After which, the guy thanks the lady and puts it on, while the main character watches this. She almost cries and thinks how happy this is. Then she looks at the other flowers and thinks she'll make another wreath. A little while later, the young man with black hair is already holding this wreath and saying what a pleasant smell it has. Alice replies that yes, and the flowers in the garden are very beautiful. She also understands that the young man hasn't been outside for so long, but now that she's met Mikhail, everything must be fine. The young lady also says that she will help with the wreath, because the guy dressed it strangely. However, the young man immediately puts it on the main character and claims that it is Alice. He comes closer, after which the young lady smiles and states that then she will be in it for now. The girl also claims that today she met Mikhail, and he is Evan's younger brother, and he is only 5 years old. The young lady then asks if it's a good name, while the brunette asks if Alice likes the guy. The girl replies that he's cute and handsome, and then adds something else in her mind. That he is like a little angel who came down from heaven because he has plump pink cheeks, hair the color of silver in the moonlight, and even the color of his eyes is beautiful. Like a shining jade. The brunette asks her if she likes beautiful things, and the young lady is just wondering if someone could possibly dislike them, and the young man then wonders what he looks like. Alice claims that she can bring a mirror tomorrow if he wants, to which the guy agrees, and the young lady asks if he is interested in what he looks like. The young man replies that a little, and he asks if he's handsome too, and the main character then cries out that of course he is. After which she sees how the young man is worried about his handcuffs and claims that soon it will no longer hurt him, and he will become even more handsome than now, and for now she strokes his head and claims that she will bring him a mirror, so he'd be convinced. But the next day, the main character is already in bed with a cold, and she also understands that it seems like she has had weak lungs since birth, and this is so infuriating. At this time, the doctor claims that she has a high temperature, and that the lady usually gets sick once a season. But this time, she spent too much time in the towers and bad air, so the illness won't go away quickly. The young lady then thinks that she was planning to bring Edwin a mirror today. Meanwhile, the doctor asks if he can take care of Mr. Edwin until she gets better, after which the young lady asks if it won't be difficult for him. Evan replies that yes, but she still needs to get well faster, or the girl claims that she will listen to Evan in order to be healthy. She also asks if the guy found a nanny for Mikhail, and the doctor recalls his brother's difficult character. He claims that it's only for half a day, and the young lady understands that everything is just like in the original. Then she tells the guy to bring his brother there if necessary. The doctor then asks if it's okay to give the girl away, as she's sick and it would be too much trouble. However, the young lady replies that no, because she loves Mikhail and claims that she needs bed rest, but she is bored, and there are a lot of toys there, and she thinks that cooking food for one more person won't be a problem. The doctor then thinks for a bit, but then states that if that's the case, he has no choice, since Mikhail also likes her. The next day, the boy is already sitting next to the young lady and claims that he does not like ugly people. The main character thinks it's cute but still wonders if he really likes her that much, after which the young lady only sighs and claims that she will thus plunge into eternal sleep. The young man then asks if his sister will really fall into eternal sleep, and the girl, with a smile on her face, replies that no, and that it is just figurative. However, then the girl sees that the guy is crying and is surprised, after which she thinks why he suddenly started crying. At this time, Mikhail claims that his mother said exactly the same thing, and then the cough became stronger and eventually she fell into an eternal sleep. At this time, the blonde, with a smile on her face, asserts that she will soon feel better, so he shouldn't worry, because it's Evan. He'll definitely help her, and Mikhail's nearby. The young man is a little surprised and asks if it's true, and the main character replies, of course. The young man then resolutely asserts that he will help her recover, after which he tortures the rag, and he threw it at the young lady, asking if she was feeling better. The main character, watching the young man, practically glowed. She claims that she is very pleased because she directly feels that she is being cured, after which the guy also takes the spoon with the porridge and blows on it. The girl then asks why he's doing this, and the young man asks if she really doesn't want to eat, after which the main character immediately screams that she wants to and is just hungry. And at that very moment, the young man shoves porridge into her mouth, but for some reason it touches the girl's tongue, and it starts to hurt. And the guy at this time claims that he too was once treated the same way and the patients were just like little children. After which, he repeats this action again by blowing on the porridge and putting it in the young lady's mouth. And the main character then turns to Mikhail and says that she loves him very much, after which he faints. The young man immediately throws down the porridge and asks what's wrong with her. Meanwhile, the maid goes to the young lady with some pills. Well, when he hears someone scream, he gets a little scared, after which he immediately opens the door to his mistress's room and sees that there is an overturned bowl of water and a broken plate of porridge. And the young man, with tears in his eyes, asks the girl not to fall into eternal sleep. Then another maid also comes into the room, watches all this with a little surprise, and then goes as if to the mistress. She claims that it turned out that this guy is Evan's younger brother, Michael Elgar, and he recently began visiting the young lady. The woman then wonders if Alice and Evan are really that close, after which she asks how long the Elgar family has been helping the Duke's family. And the maid claims that, as far as she knows, this has been going on since the time of the first Duke, and she heard that their skills and knowledge of plants are at such a level that even the imperial palace does not want to stay away. The woman then talks about plants and realizes that suddenly it wasn't Alice who understood everything, and Evan, who told her, and the woman just bites her nails, after which she tells the maid to bring Anna. At this time, the brunette is sitting in the tower, and then he sees the doctor approaching him. Evan asks to be allowed to examine the guy's wounds, but he only claims that he is not in the mood. Evan then takes his hand and claims that he wants to help, after which he looks at the food that is near the guy and realizes that he has hardly eaten anything. He also unwraps the young man's wounds and says that he needs to look at them, and also claims that the wounds have not yet been closed. Edwin then remembers the words that when he is completely cured, he will become much more beautiful, and now asks when these wounds will heal. The doctor claims he's not sure and it could take more than a month. He also understands that after Lady Alice explained everything, then he realized the boy's symptoms weren't quite normal. The medications he prescribed had almost no effect. And although the lady stopped coming when the lady changed the locks, but new wounds appeared, and this is not due to physical beatings, but to a problem that lies within, as if the guy's very bones were cursed. But he can't even imagine how this could happen to the young master, and if he were even a little stronger, he could help him. At this point, the young man turns to the doctor and asks when Alice will arrive. Evan then looks at the guy with a little surprise and then claims that she is almost recovered but will not be able to come so often anymore. After all, it's hard for her to breathe in this place. The main character is asleep and has no food, due to a slightly strange dream in which she lies in the middle of a puddle of red liquid. The girl also thinks how much pain she is in, and when she turns around and sees that all the servants and even her mother are no longer above, who thinks what happened there. At this time, Edvon also comes there, and the main character asks why she is in such a place, but the guy answers that the reason is simple. At that moment, Alice jumps out of bed. Mikhail, who is standing next to her, asks what's wrong, since she scared him. After which the young man also asks if she is okay, and the girl replies that yes, and she had a nightmare. Alice understands that this scene was different from the original, and this is strange, so the girl thinks about why she dreamed of such a thing. Mikhail also tells Alice to drink some water and go back to bed, and the girl thinks that Edwin is not as scary as before, and she thinks that it was just a stupid dream. And she misses him, and also wonders if Evan will let her go to see the guy. At this time, Mikhail turns to the girl and tells her to go to bed quickly because suddenly she will get worse again, but the girl insists that she has already recovered. The young man insists that she's weaker than an ant, which is why she starts coughing because of the bad air. And the main character insists that he too gets sick sometimes. Well, Mikhail replies that this has never happened and that she's just weak. Alice then remembers that he doesn't get sick because he's strong, and the young man is guiding her to bed. And he tells her to go to bed quickly if she doesn't want to get sick, to which the young lady agrees and claims that she will spend her whole life in bed. The young man then wonders what caused the nightmare, and whether it was really something terrible. The young lady insists that she probably just wants to see one person. Mikhail then asks who, and the girl replies that she herself understands that this friend is this guy's betrothed. However, Mikhail is now shocked and asks if she really has friends. After that, she remains silent, and the guy insists he doesn't. The main character then remembers that it was the same in the novel, but then she points out that they are friends. And she also asks if she was the only one who thought so, after which the young man gets a little embarrassed and cries out that they are friends, because he decided this even before her, or she is probably bored, so he will read. And the main character then asks if it's true and says that it sounds funny, after which the young man reads a book about a mermaid. He reads that she thought the prince was stupid because he couldn't talk, and that while he was sleeping, she had to take the secret flag. The main character then thinks what it is and wonders where the guy got this book. The young man then asks if this isn't her book, and the girl understands that she threw them away. After which, she claims it's a forbidden book, and that children who read bad books are also bad. However, the guy insists everything is fine and he's almost finished, and yesterday the girl said he was a good boy. At this point, someone approaches the lady and claims she's brought desserts. The main character is then told that's fine and she can come in, and also thinks the maid is just in time. A little while later, the girl is already on the street and then asks where Anna is. But the maid replies that she came on personal matters, and Mikhail at this time is looking at all these desserts. The main character also thinks how beautiful they are, then asks Il if she wants a piece. The young man then asks if she would like one, and the girl replies that she's not hungry and that she's not hungry. After which the young man says that he will help eat it and not let it go to waste. And when the young man tried this dessert, he thanks her and claims that it is very tasty, and the main character thinks how cute he is, and the guy got closer to her because of the desserts. That's why he is so simple. But at that very moment, the main character notices how red liquid starts coming out of the young man's mouth and asks what happened. But the young man just begins to fall and loses consciousness. The main character immediately runs to him. And then, with tears in his eyes, he asks what to do and whether he needs to call a doctor quickly. At this time, the girl also hears Evan calling for the lady and his brother, after which he asks where they went. Well, then he hears the main character calling him and then screaming for him to quickly go there, because Mikhail is unconscious. After which the doctor examines his brother and, somewhat surprised, states that it is poison. The young lady then asks in shock if he was poisoned, and the man replies that the smell is similar to mint, and the symptoms of poisoning are similar to those of the plant Silesian. An overdose can damage the mind. The main character, now shocked, asks if Mikhail is really alive now. However, the doctor interrupts her and insists that he is not. And he has high poison resistance for some reason, so he'll be fine. The main character then realizes that it's all because of the cake and that this piece was meant for her. So now the young lady claims that it is all her fault because the guy ate her piece of cake. But the doctor then asks in shock if she was really the target. The girl then apologizes. However, Evan strokes her head and tells the girl not to worry because it's not her fault. The young lady then tries to say something, but the guy claims that this could not have been predicted. And even more so, if Lady Alice had eaten this, she could have lost her mind for the rest of her life. Now the doctor says that Mikhail will be fine and they are lucky that everything ended with minimal damage. So to prevent this from happening again, he'll inform Madame. However, the main character screams at him not to do it. The doctor then asks why, and the girl replies that she already guesses that he also tried to poison her, and let him not tell her mother anything. Evan is a little surprised after that, and he asks if everything is really like this, but then turns to the lady and says that maybe she is mistaken. The man also claims that he is offering her to escape from the estate with him, as it is too dangerous to stay there. But the main character claims that everything is fine, and she should, and everything will be fine. After which the girl tramples the cake, and the doctor asks why he is doing this, but the young lady says that he needs to leave. And they'll say that Mikhail passed out because they got into a fight. The doctor then wants to say something. However, the young lady only asks for her help, and Evan claims that he does not know what the lady is planning, and the leg tries to come more often and take care of Edwin until it becomes safer. The young lady then thanks Evan. He leaves, telling her to remember to take care of her health. The young lady is then left alone and clenching her fists, realizing that she did not think it would come to this. And this woman is her biological mother, and the girl doesn't understand whether she thinks that everything will be okay if her daughter doesn't go into eternal sleep with her, but simply loses her mind. At this moment, the mistress bursts into the room and claims to be there. The young lady also looks into the room next to the street exit, and the maid turns to the mistress, but when she sees what happened on the balcony, she is a little surprised. And the main character claims that she played with this boy because he was handsome, but he behaved like a spoiled child and a fight started because he wanted to take her cake. After which, the young lady tells the maid not to let this guy into the estate anymore. The maid is then a little surprised, but Alice asks if she should repeat it, after which Anna immediately bows and says that she obeys her mistress. At this point, the main character kicks one of the glasses and tells her to remove this one too, because there's no room to even stand on it. After which, she also turns to the maid and asks if she wants to say something, but she replies that she doesn't, and she'll clean it all up. The next morning, the main character only sighs and realizes she still hasn't been able to sleep. But she never even considered that she might be put to eternal sleep by someone other than Edwin. But the girl decides not to be upset and claims that there is nothing to be afraid of and that she just needs to speed up the main plan a little. After all, she will survive, Edwin will be free, and Karina will receive the punishment she deserves. But now the main character hears someone entering the room, and her mother at this time claims that she forgot to knock. I also heard that her daughter had been feeling unwell lately, which is why she was in such a hurry. And the main character then wonders if she really came to check why she is unharmed, and the young lady now thanks her mother for worrying about her, and also claims that everything is fine now. However, the woman at this time only approaches her and claims that the girl has become so thin, and she needs to take better care of her. Then she says that she heard about Mikhail, that the boy started coming and playing with her, and the woman asks if he was there today too. But if she liked the boy so much, then she should have taken care of him too. And the main character now clenches her fists, but claims that Mikhail will not come again. And although he looks and speaks beautifully, he is too impudent, and she scolded him and drove him away. The woman then says that now it is clear what that noise was recently, and the girl agrees and claims that the boy wanted to take her away from the cake. That's why she hit him. But he's so weak that he even passed out, and it's very annoying. The woman then says that it is clear, and the young lady asks if she wants to ask anything else. Well, Karina turns to Alice and asks if she wants to say something herself. The young lady then pretends that she doesn't understand what this woman is talking about and says that she doesn't know, after which she asks if her mother wants her to say how beautiful she is. After which the girl, with a smile on her face, states that she is so glad that her mother visited her, and also thanks her for her care. The woman then says that of course, she is her daughter after all, and let the girl not disappoint her anymore. The young lady then agrees, and Karina insists that she'll go then. The main character then sighs and says how ridiculous that is. She then looks into her jewelry drawer and takes out a pair. The girl also takes out one of the rings and understands that this will go in, after which she tells Anna to go into the room. The girl then agrees and comes in, and the main character asks if her brother's funeral went well. Anna replies that it did, and thanks the lady for her help. And the young lady then says that this is excellent, after which she hands the girl a bag and some kind of letter, telling her to take it. The maid does so but asks what it is, and the main character claims that it is a letter with recommendations and jewelry that can be easily sold without leaving a trace. And if she wants, she can leave right now. When the maid asks her mistress why so suddenly, she wasn't even thinking about leaving. And the main character replies that this is because she cannot be sure of the people who work there. The girl then turns to the mistress a little excitedly, and the young lady asserts that she can do as she wants, and the conversation is over. The main character also claims that she is going outside, so let the maid prepare everything, which she agrees to. At this time, the blonde stretches out and declares that constantly sitting at home is too boring, and she is going to go to the festival. The maid then claims that she will ask the knight to accompany the mistress, but the young lady says that she will go alone, and there is no need. Anna claims that it is dangerous, but Alice says that her dessert was poisoned, and the maid should understand. that her mother will no longer disdain her favorite methods, and that Anna is in constant danger. Therefore, the girl says that if the maid wants to fix this, then let her help her get out. At this time, she claims that the lady cannot go alone and asks to be allowed to accompany her. The main character then smiles and thanks Anna, and much time later they find themselves at the festival. She claims that this is the last festival before winter begins, which is why it is so crowded. Alice understands that this was the first time since she arrived that she had gone so far from home, and that she would have to come again when she would not think only about survival. A little while later, the maid turns to the mistress and claims that they have gone far and it could be dangerous there, so she asks who the mistress wants to meet. When the young lady turns the corner and finally sees the blue bird on the black sleeve, they realize that she has finally found this man. And this witch, who sold Karina the rhubarb. The woman at this point says what a sweet little guest has come to see her, and he asks how she can help. And the main character then turns to Anna, and he asks if she can look around for 10 minutes, because they could have sent surveillance from the estate. Or the knights might be looking for them. The maid then agrees and leaves, and the main character takes off her hood and says that there are a lot of interesting things there. The woman replies that yes, and she has rare mollusks and pearls, so the girl can look around if she wants. At this point, Alice realizes that this is a seemingly harmless girl. In reality, she's a witch, and she sells opium and poisonous drugs. At this point, she asks the main character if she has any tea leaves. After all, her mother really loves tea. The witch then says how caring this girl is, and then hands over a box of tea. And he says the little one can choose any. Alice then asks if there's anything rose-scented, and their woman replies no, because she doesn't sell rose teas. The girl then says how strange it is, because her mother said that she bought it there and it didn't look like a rose, but the smell was exactly the same. She also said she needed more of this tea. The woman then asked if the little girl had come on an errand, and she replied that she definitely had. And then the witch asks what her mother's name is, and the main character then thinks a little. And the witch tells the girl not to be afraid, because it seems to her that she and the young lady's mother are old friends. The main character understands that the witch Stella does not do business with those who do not want to reveal their identity. And this is a way to protect herself because she sells very dangerous goods and almost all of her customers are high-ranking officials, and even the emperor. The young lady then says that maybe they really are friends, after which she claims to whisper it in her ear. The girl whispers the name, after which they ask if it's beautiful. The woman then replies that it is, but she likes the baby's name better. Alice then wonders what she's talking about, since she didn't tell her name, after which the witch gives her a bag with a chance, and the main character realizes that it smells like a rose, after which she asks if she can have a glass of water. The woman replies that, of course, after which she puts down the glass, but when the young lady looks at it, she picks it up and sees that it is empty. Meanwhile, the woman uses magic and fills it with water, which surprises the young lady, and the woman then just laughs, and then asks if this is the first time the girl has seen magic. And the main character then dips the tea leaves into the water, and when it turns red, she realizes that it is definitely rhubarb. After which she holds out the ring and asks if this will be enough, to which the witch replies that of course and tells the girl to give it to her. However, when the young lady holds out the ring, the witch grabs her hand, and when the little girl breaks free, he already sees the silhouette of a butterfly on his hand and asks what it is and what the witch did. However, she only smiles and claims that it is a small gift, after which the young lady screams for her to erase it. And the witch just wishes Alice good luck, after which she teleports the main character. And the young lady then begins to rub this mark and realizes that it just won't come off. At this time, Anna approaches the lady, and the girl understands that it is time to return. The main character also thinks that she will put them in a letter and send it. 2 days later, the Duke sits in his office, and when someone knocks, the man tells that person to come in. After which a guy comes in and claims that the Duke received a strange letter. The man then asks if it is strange, and his interlocutor replies that yes, it looks more like some kind of joke, so he wanted to throw it away, but it would be better if he looked at it first. As the Duke can see, the sender used the former Duchess's name, and it was sent by express mail. Therefore, in order to find out the real identity, it will take a lot of time, and there may be something dangerous inside. But at that very moment, the Duke tears the envelope open, after which tea leaves fall out. The man then reads this letter, and when he finishes, he gets up from his seat and tells Kaiden to check these tea leaves. And the crew has prepared because he's returning to the estate. Meanwhile, the main character is pacing the room and realizing the letter should have arrived yesterday, meaning the Duke would be there soon. The girl also understands that he definitely should have received it, and she paid the postman more so that there would be no problems. But her money was slipping through her fingers. But now the main character turns around and realizes that after the Duke's arrival, all of Karina's tricks will come to light, and the girl also wonders if she will get it too. But she still doesn't think that the 7-year-old girl will be severely punished and will just have to run away from there when the time comes. The girl also understands that the dice have been thrown and wonders whether the snake will have time to bite her or whether the hound will deal with her faster. Now, the young lady also lies down on the sofa and realizes that she misses Edwin, Mikhail, and Evan. But at this time, someone knocks on her room and the main character asks who it is. However, when she hears this voice, she realizes that it is Evan, after which she runs to him and claims that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The guy then replies that only half a month has passed, after which he claims that the girl has again lost her way, and the young lady replies that she is fine. Then he asks how Mikhail is and if he's feeling better. The man tells her not to worry, as he's already recovered and is running around as usual. I'd also like to see her. The main character then says thank God, but then asks how Edwin is. The doctor replies that he's fine too, and there's good news coming soon. The young lady asks what he's talking about, and the guy says they can forget about it for now and asks if the girl is okay. And the young lady tells him not to worry, because everything will be fine soon, but for now, he will have to take it easy. However, when the young lady looks up, she sees that the doctor has leaned towards her and is looking menacingly. The main character asks what happened and claims that he scared her, and the man claims that he feels something strange next to her, and this has never happened before. After which he reaches out to the young lady's wrist, but she only turns away, and she screams for the guy to stop ruining her mood, because looking a lady straight in the face is very rude. The guy then apologizes and suggests calming down, but the girl screams that there is no way and asks if it is possible to behave like that with ladies. After which she tells him to leave and also claims that they haven't seen each other for so long, and he's talking nonsense. Evan asks the lady to wait, but she just tells him to get lost and then shows him out the door, and she tells him to be careful and take care of Edwina because she has no one else to ask. The doctor tells her to wait, but the young lady then slams the door. And when he lifts his sleeve, he understands that most likely he felt this. And the young lady thinks this is a bad sign. The girl also understands that there are no strange symptoms and it doesn't seem to hurt. After which she wonders what the hell this is. Meanwhile, Evan is heading through the forest, and then he sighs and also thinks whether it was right to retreat this time, because even though the girl behaves like an adult, she is only 7 years old. The man then enters the tower and realizes that he has been there many times already. And I tried so hard to open this boy's heart, but he brought delicious food and cleaned up. He also read books to him, but none of this worked. The young man only told the guy to quickly bring Alice. Therefore, the doctor understands that for the first time he sees a more stubborn child than Lady Alice. But in his circumstances, this is understandable, and the doctor is already starting to climb the stairs. However, at the same moment, he hears something approaching from behind, and when he turns around, it is already too late, after which a blow is heard. At this time, the young lady is lying on her bed, and then suddenly water from a vase pours on her. The girl then gets up in shock and asks what it is, but then someone wishes Lady Alice good morning. And he also tells her to follow her better now. At this point, Evan opens his eyes, but when he turns around, he sees that Anna is also sitting there, and he looks at the girl in shock. And then he turns around and sees Mrs. Karina and the boy, who is now beaten again. He then turns to the gentleman and realizes that he's again covered in wounds. However, the woman then asks if the doctor calls this boy sir, after which he just laughs and shouts that Evan Elgar did a good job. The man then asks what she is talking about, but at that moment someone knocks on the door and claims that she has brought Lady Alice, and the woman tells her to get the girl going. After which the young lady also enters the room, and Karina says that they can go and the girl will stay there. Edwin then looks at Alice in shock. Meanwhile, the woman turns to her daughter and insists that she did a good job. But now Mom will punish this naughty child. Alice then claims that Anna and Evan had nothing to do with it, and the woman asks if this is true, after which she claims that they had a bad influence on her. Anna often had to be scolded because she was clumsy, but the last mistake was too serious and she did not give Alice the medicine. A little while ago, the woman told Isabel to give Alice's maid an eggplant. The maid then asked what it was, and the woman told Anna to add it to Alice's cake tomorrow. The maid then asked what the mistress was talking about and why, but Karina insisted that it was an order, and she doesn't intend to discuss it. Anna then, with shaking hands, answered the lady that it was fine. Well, and then when I left there, I just poured out what was in that jar. But then another maid was watching her, and when Anna was about to serve her mistress food, then this maid took the food cart from the girl and claimed that she would serve everything herself, since it was the mistress's order. The maid couldn't do anything then, and just watched as her colleague took away the food. And Karina now claims that it's good that she ordered someone to look after Anna and asks how one could be so impudent. The girl at this time turns to the madam and claims that she is her benefactress and carried out all her orders and also followed the lady, and she helped pay for the funeral of her brother. The young lady then turns to Anna and asks only how she can try to put her own daughter into eternal sleep. However, Karina tells Anna not to talk nonsense, and she didn't intend to put the girl into eternal sleep, but simply to calm the problem child. For life. The maid then thinks the woman has gone completely crazy, while Karina approaches the doctor. Then she throws him to the floor and stomps on him. The main character then screams for the woman to stop, because Evan hasn't done anything wrong. However, Karina then claims that Alice does not understand anything, and he decided that Edwin is the Duke's biological son. But no one gave him the right to interfere in someone else's family affairs. Meanwhile, the main character wonders what this woman is talking about, and Karina at this time asks if he wanted to find evidence. But he provoked her daughter with his stupidity. Karina at this time screams out whether he thought that he had found the key to success, and also whether he really wanted to receive a high position from the Duke, after which she drinks the doctor and screams so that he doesn't even think about it. After all, he's a useless swindler no one needs. After that, the woman turns to the maid, and he tells her to give her the jar, to which the maid obeys and gives the jar to the mistress. And Karina then grabs the doctor by the hair and, lifting his head, claims that he will never get out of there. After which she says, let the girl watch carefully, because this will be her punishment for daring to go against her mother, because these two will plunge into eternal sleep. However, at the same moment, the main character grabs her mother by the hand and screams at her not to do this. And she said that she figured it out herself, but she doesn't believe it, and now it's all useless. After which, the girl claims that she sent the proof to the Duke, and she cannot escape punishment. The woman then grabs the young lady's hand, and then sees the silhouette of a butterfly on her wrist. At this time, the young man watches as Alice is beaten, after which, he only clenches his fist. And Karina at this time asks if the girl has really met Stella, after which she becomes furious. And she screams out how the girl could have gotten there and why some child is constantly bothering her. Alice tells Karina to let her go, but the woman only screams that the girl should also fall into eternal sleep. But at that very moment, Edwin breaks the shackles that have bound him for so long and runs to Karina, after which he attacks her and begins to strangle her. The main character watches in shock, as do the doctor and Anna. And Karina's maid then looks in shock at her mistress, who is now being strangled by a boy. The girl then runs out of the room and screams that it's a monster. Edwin then approaches the young lady, and he just leans on her. The main character asks what's wrong, and the guy apologizes. And he claims that she was harmed, but the young lady claims that it is not his fault. Edwin at this time claims that it was necessary to break these chains faster, and he wanted to protect her. After which he apologizes and the young lady asks what's wrong with him and realizes that the guy is breathing strangely. Well, at this time the young man is just beginning to fall, and the main character turns to him in shock. After which she touches his face and realizes that, just as she thought, the guy has a fever. At this time, Evan turns to the lady and asks if she can untie him. After this, the young lady does so, and the doctor measures the guy's pulse and also does other checks. Alice asks what's wrong with him and whether it's something serious, but the doctor insists that he hasn't recovered yet. And the young man used too much force. Then the doctor began to use force. And when the main character sees this light, she's a little surprised. And the man replies that it's a holy power. And during previous visits, the guy's condition did not improve, so he tried to use holy power, and it helped a little. The main character then says that it is true and understands that the guy's wounds now look better, although some were already rotting. And now she understands how Evan helped the guy, even though his strength cannot be compared to Mikil. That the curse gradually progressed and the wounds healed. Meanwhile, the man apologized to the lady, claiming it was a very rare ability that many would covet, so he hid it all. The girl said no problem and thanked him for his trust. Anna then turns to the lady and asks what they will do now, and the girl replies that they will do it first. Well, then she suddenly sees the Duke enter the room, and he asks what happened there. The young lady then looks at the Duke in shock, and he then sees Karina lying on the ground. And the young man, shackled, suffers from a fever and turns to Kaiden, ordering him to lock them all up. A little while later, the main character sneezes and realizes that 2 days have already passed. Duke Esteban looked frightening up close, and she didn't even immediately realize that it was her father. But the young lady wonders if this means that now he knows that Edwin is his biological son. Again, when the boy was little, there could still be some doubts, but now he looks like a miniature duke. And she wonders how Evan and Anna are doing, and the girl also thinks that she is cold and wants to eat and also take a bath. The young lady also understands that they will starve her to death. The girl also understands that Karina's crime has been exposed, so what is the point of leaving her daughter alive, since she is connected to this woman anyway? The young lady then hears someone approaching the door and then gets up. And the knight who entered the room tells the girl to follow him, after which the young lady does so. But he asks where they're going and if they're really going to the Duke's office. However, then the girl notices everyone looking at her. And he understands that they are no longer even trying to hide their contempt, because it seems the rumors have already spread. At this time, the girl approaches the Duke's door, and the knight announces that he has brought the girl. The man then tells her to come in. And when the young lady does so, she sees her father, after which he bends down and greets the Duke. However, seeing his gaze, the girl gets a little scared and understands that he will definitely put her into eternal sleep if she says something wrong. At this time, the man turns to Alice Gannett and talks about the letter, but then hears the girl sobbing. And he looks at her a little surprised, and the young lady, all in tears, turns to the Duke, and she asks for at least a little food because she's so hungry. Alice understands that she will pretend to be weak and useless in order to survive. Well, the man at this time just says how noisy it is, and then asks what it is, pointing to a bag of leaves. The girl replies that these are tea leaves, and he claims that she guessed correctly, after which he tells the butler to bring something sweet because he already has tea. The young lady then thanks the Duke, but thinks that he is trying to find out if she knows anything about the letter, after which she realizes that she needs to be meek and grateful. The young lady also recalls the side effects and wonders if they are really going to pour this on a 7-year-old girl. And the man at this time asks what happened in the tower a few days ago. The girl then claims that Isabel, who is her mother's maid, suddenly took her to her house, and when she arrived, she saw that she was very angry. She said nasty things to Evan and hit her, and then Evan couldn't hold back and attacked her. The man then asks what exactly her mother was talking about, and the young lady claims that everything happened so quickly and scary that she didn't hear. After which she asks where her mother is and Edwin, because he almost strangled her then. However, the man claims that he was told that she wanted the tower to mock the guy. After this, the girl screams that she did nothing of the sort and that she was simply lonely and that she also wanted to be friends with him. The young lady also claims that when the Duke was absent, she was often ill, and sometimes she felt better, but there was nothing to do. And this boy was the only child her age in the area. The Duke then claims. The girl seemed to have had a hard time, after which he offered her some tea and to calm down. The girl then thanks him and understands that there are no other options and she will have to drink. After all, if he realizes that she sent the letter, everything will become even more confused. And while she doesn't know whether Karina survived, and saying anything blindly would be too dangerous. After which the Duke watches as the girl takes this tea and brings it to her mouth. However, at the same moment, he addresses her by her first and last name, and the young lady understands that this is the last name they used before they became part of this house. And the man claims that it would be better for her not to try to deceive him, and the girl claims that she swears that she is telling only the truth. After which the Duke turns around and says that okay, and she can also leave. Alice asks what he is talking about, and the Duke claims that she is free and if he needs something from her, they will come for her, but the rest of the time she should not catch his eye. If she doesn't want to end up like her mother, then the young lady returns to her room, and then she sneezes but understands that she has just recovered, so she needs to ask for medicine before it gets worse. After which the young lady pulls the handle and apologizes but realizes that the room does not open. And the young lady wonders if this Duke really locks up everyone he meets. Meanwhile, the doctor sits next to the young man, and he understands that the curse has disappeared, but the wounds have not yet completely healed, and his regeneration is amazing. The same cannot be said about Lady Alice, because he cannot stop worrying about her. At this moment, the Duke enters the room and the boy greets him. The man then approaches Edwan. And the doctor claims that the young gentleman is still sleeping and he is seriously undernourished, but in good conditions. If he eats a lot and sleeps, he will quickly recover. The blonde then claims that he heard that the doctor was taking care of him and that his wounds could not be cured with ordinary medicines. So he says, I wonder what the guy did. Meanwhile, the doctor wonders if he said they couldn't be cured and realizes he already knows what caused them. After which he claims that he made a special ointment and carried out disinfection. But the Duke asks if this is all he did, and the doctor replies that yes, and he developed it personally, so it turned out to be a good drug, and he can write the Duke a prescription if he wants. However, the man only smiles and confirms afterward. He wants to thank him for his help, after which he asks if the doctor wants to ask for anything. But he only asks if he can see Lady Alice, because helping Mr. Edwin is not only his merit. And without this girl, he couldn't have done anything. However, the Duke then turns to the doctor and asks what he's talking about. Evan replies that if the man allows him to see her, he will tell her everything. After which the Duke rises from his seat and, heading towards the door, tells the doctor to follow him. Evan agrees, and a short while later the main character goes to karate. Meanwhile, the Duke stands in front of his daughter's door. After which, the Duke, shocked, asks if the girl is really gone. One of the servants replies that she is, and that he escorted the young lady to her room that morning and has been standing guard at the door ever since. So it seems she escaped through the window. And the Duke replies that he can't believe it, and why would she do such a stupid thing? But at this time, one of the servants runs up to the Duke and claims that trouble has happened, because a message has just arrived about Lady Alice leaving the palace. The man then, shocked, asks what he's talking about, and the servant doesn't even know whether to say it. That same morning, the girl approached the guards, but they told her to stop because going outside was prohibited. However, the young lady replied that she had been banished, to which the men were a little surprised. And the girl, with tears in her eyes, insisted that it was true and she didn't want to become like her mother, so he ordered her to get out of there right now. After which the knight opened the gates, and the young lady merely walked away. One of the knights then remembered his daughter, and he understood that the girl was the same age as her, but he still thought that despite that. How bad is this child's character, or how he has done wrong? He thinks that his lordship was too cruel this time. After which the knight also turned to the lady and claimed that if she was heading in that direction, she could go karate. And that carriage is used by common people, so it can hardly be called comfortable, but it is much better than walking. The girl then smiled and thanked the knight. Now the servant finishes his story, and then the doctor is a little surprised and says that this child left alone. After which the Duke tells them to find this girl right now. The young lady, meanwhile, recalls the events of the novel. She understands that Mikhail, who had been abused, wanted to escape from the terrible man and regain control of his soul. It was a great opportunity to while away the wait, and Mikhail finally managed to get out. Hayden Island is little known and remote, and it's also the perfect place to live in the shadows. Mikhail was helped by people from the village, and time passed, also thanks to the help of good-natured residents. Gradually, Mikhail's mind and body were healed, but one day the entire village was burned to the ground. And Edvin approached the guy, after which he claimed that it was useless because everyone had already plunged into a crippling sleep, and they were the only ones left alive. Edvin also claimed that he had said that he had no one but himself. Now the young lady is sitting in a diner and writing something. The girl is also writing about Felisa, who owned a bakery, the family of the blacksmith Malone, Adele from the fruit shop. They were all kind people, and if you put on the mask of a poor child, any of the residents would take her under their wing. Therefore, the girl thinks that she needs to come up with a way for people to escape before Edwin appears. The young lady also takes out one ticket and reads that Hayden is the place that the refugees say is the background location in the second half of the episodes. And the girl understands that she must go there now, and no matter what, she cannot live in the palace. Therefore, it is necessary to stay there, at least until she grows up, after which the young lady sees the boat. And heading towards her, he understands that Edwin is freed, so there is no need to worry, but Evan is in no hurry, and she must find the letter she left earlier. After all, judging by what she heard along the way, she believes Anna was given a probationary period after a short investigation, and she'll soon be back at work. The girl also understands that Evan left a letter, and if he sees it, who will be able to avoid falling into a crippling sleep on the battlefield. Then the young lady hears the ship arriving and heads towards it. Standing before it, the young lady also wonders if she did the right thing, after which she also remembers the boy who said that he would protect her and realizes that she misses him very much. However, the young lady then decides that she should not doubt, after which she stands in line and realizes that it is quite long. But then the girl hears someone whispering about why the knights are there, and apparently someone committed a serious crime. Therefore, all passengers are searched to prevent criminals from boarding the ship, and the main character then realizes that these are Esteban's knights. One of them approaches the girl at that moment, and he also asks her name, and she claims that she is Anne Hathaway and understands that she has to blurt out anything. The man also removes her hood and realizes that she has slightly curly hair and blue eyes, so she fits the description. The young lady then asks what he is talking about, and this is a common thing, after which she turns to one of the men. And he claims that he also has blue eyes and light curls, so they shouldn't judge a book by its cover. The knight then asks if she is talking about judging a book by its cover, and the girl only screams if she can go, and she has to get on the ship. After all, her mother said that it was very dangerous to go sailing on a ship alone, and told her not to talk to strangers because they were bad guys. However, then someone grabs the young lady by the hand and claims that she is Alice Gannett. After all, it really is she, and the young lady then thinks who it is, but when she turns around, then she sees a bracelet with the outline of a dove, and the girl looks at the guy and thinks, is this really it? Eloise Erman, from the Marquis Erman family, the main character then rides karate back, and she realizes that it seems to her that she is getting worse, because it is quite warm in the carriage. After which the young lady asks where they are going now, and whether they are really going to the Duke. But she still doesn't receive an answer to her question, and wonders if the Duke is looking for it and ordered it to be returned. However, the young man remains silent, and the girl realizes that it's as if she's talking to a wall. Eloise Erman is the offspring of Marquis Erman, a character who will become the commander of Duke Esteban's knights. Having become his friend, he volunteered to accompany Mikhail and blocked Edwin's path. When Mikhail tried to escape, and was also immersed in eternal sleep. Now the main character is thinking how poor the secondary characters are, and the original work is complete chaos, so life is too. At this time, the guy looks at the young lady and thinks what kind of look this is and whether she really sympathizes with him. The guy also realizes that she has changed in the months since he left the duchy, and the girl followed him so easily, so he thinks, could it be that it wasn't her? At this time, the guy asks what her name is, and also asks her age and location of the Duchy of Esteban, and let her even name her mother. And there are 3 more strange titles of books that she reads most often, but the young lady claims that she is not crazy. When they are already in the estate and heading up the stairs, the girl is breathing heavily. Well, when the knight turns around, he's immediately shocked. The main character, watching him, wonders what's going on. But the boy merely stands in front of her and prepares to defend himself. In the young lady's last room, he sees some guy, and the knight, watching the bodies lying there, realizes that there are no signs of resistance. A little while earlier, the black-haired young man woke up and rose from his bed. The first word he said was Alice, and the young man began to wander around the room, followed the girl, and then went out into the corridor. Then the young man walked past the maids, they bowed to him, and then the young man approached the duke's door. The knight then turned to the young gentleman, and the boy heard that, in the duke's office, someone was claiming that they had mobilized all available forces. And Alice Guinea acted quite bravely, and where has it ever been seen that a child under 7 years old left the house in such weather? After which he claimed that Alois was searching for her. Then the young man wanted to enter the duke's office, but the knight stopped him, and the young man dealt with him. After which he opens the door to the duke's room. His secretary then asks if this is the young gentleman. Meanwhile, the blonde insists it's bad form. However, the boy only asks where Alice is, and his father replies that, at least not in this house. After which the young man tells the guy to find her. And the duke wonders if there is a reason to return when you leave on your own 2 feet. After which they just look at each other, but then Edvin is a little surprised and immediately runs out into the corridor. After which he sees the main character there, who asks what happened. However, at that very moment, the young man hugs her tightly, and the girl is a little surprised, after which she claims that she cannot breathe and asks if he is injured. However, the guy just remains silent, and the knight watches this with a little surprise. The young lady then says that the guy's wound has almost healed, and that's great, and also asks if it hurts anywhere. Edvin presses the young lady's hand to his cheek and simply answers yes. The girl realizes that this is the first time she's seen him in such bright light, and it's very beautiful. The young man at this point only says that it's Alice, and why? While the girl insists it's because of the heat. But when she turns around, she sees the duke, after which she only puts on her hood and claims that she has to go, but she will be back soon. Edvin then turns to Alice a little worriedly, and the girl states that if he continues talking. However, at that very moment, the duke turns to her and tells her to stand there, and also asks who it was that left their mansion without permission. The girl then turns to the duke and asks by what right he disposes of her, since he first locked her up, and then ordered her to return. The man then just looks at her angrily and asks what this girl is talking about, and the young lady asserts that she is her mother's daughter, and that she has lost her title of duchess. Therefore, she is no longer part of this house. And isn't that why he called her Guinea and not Esteban? The man only sighs after that, and then Edvin takes the girl by the hand and says that he is also leaving with Alice, but the girl screams that this is not possible. The young man then asks why, and the main character doesn't even know how to say it and understands that he needs to meet with Mikhail. At this time, the guy asks Alice if she doesn't like being around her, and the girl replies that, no, of course not, but he's still a child. However, the girl realizes that she herself is 7 years old. The man, meanwhile, insists that he can't let her go, so she should try. Don't commit such rash acts in the future, and she will live in the room that was originally hers, and he can also offer a salary. The girl then asks why suddenly, and the man claims that if she leaves, she will leave. And Edwin, his only son, won't have any trouble leaving the estate. After which the duke asks her what her answer is. and the girl replies that she understands and will stay. Alice also realizes that she's nearly gone mad with fear. After which, everyone starts falling over. A little while later, the girl is already sitting up in her bed, and he eats the porridge, after which he says that it is very tasty and also thinks that it is as expected from home-cooked food. At this time, the maid says that it's good that the temperature has gone down and the lady has regained her appetite. Alice also turns to Anna and asks if she has eaten about the maid, and she replies that, of course she has. After all, now she walks proudly with her shoulders straightened, because rumors have spread throughout the mansion that the girl saved the young master from evil forces. And of course the lady wanted to harm her and so on, but as she asked, she kept her mouth shut. His lordship pressed her, but she wouldn't give in. The main character then tells the maid it was a good job and thanks her. But Anna then whispers something in her ear and asks how long the young master. She plans to stay there, after which the young lady sees a guy sitting nearby. He just looks menacingly at the maid, after which he gets scared, and the main character asks Edwin if he wants to go and get some fresh air. After all, the room is probably stuffy, but the young man replies that he doesn't want to, after which he crawls up to the young lady. He lifts the blanket and claims that if she doesn't want to see him, he'll crawl under it. The main character then, shocked, replies that no, everything's fine, so let him stay there. After which the young man sits back down and the main character realizes that many things still seem strange to him, because he just got out of the tower and he wants to stay in familiar surroundings. The main character then turns to Anna and says she wants meat, so let the maid serve steak. However, Anna points out that the mistress doesn't usually eat it. Alice. Well, the girl insists that everything is fine, or she can serve her soup with a large piece of meat, since it's easily digestible. The maid then tells the mistress that it's fine. And then, however, at that very moment, someone says that this cannot be done, and it turns out to be Evan. He puts his suitcase on a chair and insists that there is no steak soup, because they can be eaten when the temperature drops. The maid then claims that she will bring a new towel right away. The doctor then begins examining the young lady. He claims she still has a slight fever and a very swollen throat. Therefore, she should not go outside under any circumstances now and needs bed rest and easily digestible food. The main character then turns to Evan and asks if he is really that angry. The girl also has puppy dog eyes and asks if he will talk to her now. After this, the man breaks his hand and, rising from his chair, angrily asks if she is out of her mind. He also screams how she can leave home at 8 years old, and in such cold weather it's so reckless and dangerous, and what would have happened if she had been kidnapped or found later. He also claims that if she has nowhere to go, she will be welcome at his place, after which he asks if he really looks so heartless. The young lady then turns to Evan and claims that she did wrong, and will run away to Evan's house next time. The young man sighs after this and claims that he was terribly worried, so it's good that the lady returned. That same evening, the young lady is about to go to bed, but then she turns to Edwin and asks if he can leave her room and let him go and have a good rest, because they will see each other again tomorrow. But the guy then asks why she constantly drives him away. He also claims that he thought that if he left there, he could always be with Alice, but all she does is drive him away. And he also leaves alone, and now the young man turns to Alice and asks, does she really hate him? The main character then, shocked, asks if he's talking about hatred, after which she asserts that Edwin is a very good man, and the young man asks if she'll leave then, after which the girl replies that she won't go anywhere, and the young man is silent for a moment, after which he simply bows his head. The main character, seeing how upset he was, still sighs and points to the place next to her, telling Edwin to go there. After all, they can sleep together, because where he sits is clearly very uncomfortable. The guy does just that and lies down next to the young lady. And the main character sees this. He thinks how cute it is and says that this is probably the first time he has been able to lie so comfortably. After this, the young man just closes his eyes, and the main character understands that it is a little difficult. But if the guy meets Michal, he will stick to him forever, and she thinks whether she needs to explain this to Edvan in advance. How to behave so he doesn't scare Mikhail. The young lady's mother is sitting in a dark room at this time, and he bites his nails and also thinks about what is going on and how Alice met the witch. And what kind of letter is this? After which the young lady's mother only scolds her, and she asks if they really won't execute her. But at that moment, someone enters the room, and the woman, looking at this man, says that it's Dietrich. Then she too falls to her knees and cries out that she didn't know. He also has no idea what kind of letter it is and knows nothing about it. However, the man claims that it doesn't matter who exactly sent it. After all, only its content and authenticity matter. The trial will take place soon, so let the woman bow her head. And he admits his guilt, after which she screams in shock that he knows that this child is his. The man replies that he knows and claims that the punishment will not be soft, since the reason for this was not Edwin, but the poisoning and immersion into eternal sleep of the first Duchess. And then the woman was a commoner, and therefore would be accused of putting a noble person into eternal sleep, and she will be executed. Now the woman here grabs the Duke by the clothes and begs him to save her. She also tries to say something, but the Duke doesn't react at all. The woman then bursts into tears. She claims that she is Alice's mother and wants to say something else, but the man addresses her as Karina Gannett, and he asks if she really wants to plunge into eternal sleep, after which he also claims that he hates to repeat himself twice, and the trial will only be held on the case of plunging into eternal sleep. But this will save her. A week after her thoughtless escape, the young lady eats meat and realizes that perhaps her cold has quickly passed thanks to good rest. And today Evan allowed her to eat steak, while Edwin sat quietly in her room. And when night fell, she often visited his temporary resting place today when the repairs were finally completed. Then the boy will move into his own bedroom. Now the young lady asks if he remembered the way, to which the young man replies yes, after which the butler points to the room and states that the renovation work was only completed today and he strictly followed the Duke's instructions, but if anything happens, they can contact him with any questions. After which the servant opens the room, and the main character is surprised, seeing this luxurious interior. When she sits on the guy's bed, she claims that she is very soft, and he will sleep well. After which the girl also asks if he remembers what she talked about, and the young man replies that yes, and she said to wash every day, and also if the clothes are dirty, then they need to be changed. If the food has spoiled, you can't eat it yet, and if something hurts, you need to talk about it, and also study hard and not break anything, and also not put people into eternal sleep without permission. The guy also asks if it is possible to also put people who offend Alice into eternal sleep, and the girl, a little surprised, answers no. The young man then asks Alice not to leave and to stay there. The girl, smiling, says that the boy has learned everything well. One of the servants then suggests that the lady go to her room, to which the girl agrees, after which she states that it is time for her to go. She also wishes Edwin good night, after which the boy says goodbye to her and remains alone in the room. Well, when some time passes, he gets out of bed and takes his cape. He sits down on the floor and then realizes that he doesn't want to sleep in a soft bed at all. At this time, the main character is outside and digs up the ground, after which she sees a chest, and she realizes she's finally found him. The girl also takes out the letter and realizes she left it with Evan before running away from home. Well, she decided to stay, so she needed to get rid of him. The girl also understands that it would be difficult for her to explain herself if the guy got to him. It's good that he didn't find it during this time, but she is obliged to warn him about the dangers that await in the future. In the original, the Duke sent Edwin to the battlefield before the onset of winter and brought Michael to the palace. Therefore, the girl understands that the outbreak of hostilities cannot be allowed, but she thinks about how to avoid events that have not yet happened. At this time, someone addresses Alice and the main character realizes that it is Edwin. After which she asks him if he's finished yet and what lesson he's covered. He replies that it was the history of the empire, and the young lady then asks if he can really master such difficult subjects, and that is very cool, so she claims that her friend is cool. For the past few days, Edwin has been studying different subjects and teachers who have taught him theories. And also those who tested the guy in practice, all without exception, called the guy a genius. Alice also understands that he mastered fencing techniques after just one glance and learned the alphabet at an incredible speed, so his level is slightly above average in all aspects. Now the young lady just looks at the guy and asks, "What's the matter?" And also, should he return to his studies? However, the guy tells Alice that it is very cold there and suggests going back. The girl then asks if it's cold and claims that everything seems to be fine, but the guy takes her hand. And he replies that it's not an answer. A person can get sick if they freeze, and Alice is still weak. The girl replies that it's not that bad. And then he says that Edwin has never played in the snow, after which he says that she is teaching him and he will need gloves. However, when the main character returns, she wonders why she suddenly became round. The young lady also remembers how the maid dressed her warmer and warmer, and now she picks up snow in her hands. And he also tells Edwin to watch carefully because you need to collect snow with your hands and then make a ball like this, and this needs to be thrown at another person. The young man then asks why, and the main character replies that it's because it's fun, after which she throws a snowball at the guy. And when he shakes himself off, the girl just laughs and asks if he's having fun. The young man then looks at the main character's smile and replies yes, after which the girl throws another snowball at him. When the young man aims at her, he misses. The young lady even hits him right in the face. However, the guy throws it near her feet and still misses. Alice understands that they are not able to play for some reason, after which she asks if Edwin likes the guy, and he answers that he does. The girl realizes that the snow is apparently quite sticky and then suggests making a snowman, as that would be even more fun. A little while later, the girl is already making a snowman that looks like Edwin and is smiling. At this time, the doctor also comes up to them and asks if they have made a snowman. After which he also asks how long they've been there, and claims the cold air is harmful to the respiratory tract. The girl claims they just arrived. But then she gets an idea, and she says that she wants to play at Evan's house. The guy then asks why, so suddenly. The girl replies that she wants to see Mikhail and go for a walk with Edvon. The doctor then asserts that the young gentleman hasn't yet been out in the world and will ask permission. The main character then agrees, but Edwin only remains silent, after which he repeats the word ask for permission. A little while later, the young lady is already in the carriage and is thinking how good it is that she doesn't feel sick, and it's also warm. The guy then asks if she was really seasick and when, and the girl replies that it was when she escaped from the estate in her carriage. And of course, it's not all bad, but the Duke's carriage is much better. Meanwhile, the doctor turns to the lady and tells her not to try to escape again, and Edwin insists that if Alice decides to run away, he'll run away with her. A little while later, they are already driving past the city, and the young man looks out the window. The main character then asks if this is surprising, and the young man replies that he doesn't know. Well, it's the first time he's seen something like this, and he wants to see more. Afterwards, the girl suggests they go together sometime. But Anna said that there was delicious pudding there, to which the young man only agreed. The doctor at this time watched them with a smile on his face, and a little while later they arrived at the estate. Then they get out of the carriage, and Evan welcomes them into his home. The main character then also sees. The doctor just lifts the kitten into his arms. Evan also turns to the maid and asks if Mikhail is still asleep, and the woman replies that he is, and that he ate on time and took his medication. Well, when they enter the guy's room, the main character turns to Evan, and she asks if he didn't say the guy had already recovered. The main character also looks at the young man, and he realizes he looks very pale and his breathing is heavy. Evan turns to the lady and tells her not to worry, because the guy is already much better and almost completely recovered. The guy also remembers how the young man ran around with huge balls of snow, and he threw them at his brother, after which he was practically swimming in the snow, and he claims that he was given permission to go outside. So he played in the cold all day and caught a cold, after which they all remained silent. The young man is just sleeping contentedly, and the main character thinks how naughty he is, but she's still glad that he had fun. After which, the main character looks at the chest of drawers and wonders if this is really a flower wreath. The doctor claims that Mikhail made this wreath as a return gift to his mistress, and that he missed her while sick and insisted on it. Edwin asks what return means, and the girl asks if he remembers the day when she brought him a wreath, to which the young man agrees. And Alice claims that she made the same for Mikhail and Edvin, and apparently for this reason. Mikhail made a wreath for her, and the doctor at this time says that then he will bring something to eat, so let them wait there. At this time, the girl looks at the wreath and understands that if you look at it this way, these flowers bloom in the summer. At this time, Edwin turns to Alice, and the young lady then claims that Mikhail suffered because of the cake intended for her, and even went so far as to cause hematemesis. And he must have been very scared, so now the young lady claims that she is sorry that such an active child is because of her. I had to spend the whole season in bed, and Evan probably had a hard time too. The brunette is silent for a while after this, but asks if Alice really almost ate the poisoned cake, and the girl replies that yes, and she also gets goosebumps. But then the main character remembers something and looks at Edwin and also at Mikhail. He understands that this is the first meeting of the main couple of the story, and now the young lady turns to Edvanu asks if this boy doesn't look like an angel and if there's a bell ringing in his head. The girl also claims his name is Mikhail, and she already told him and really wanted to introduce him. The guy then asks why, and the young lady tells him to give her his hand, after which she puts it to his cheek. Michaela, looking at Edwin, wonders if nothing's happening. Then she realizes the boy's ability isn't manifesting as it did in the original. At this time, the young man opens his eyes, and the girl realizes that thanks to Evan, the curse of horror has come to an end. When the main character sees that the guy has woken up, she immediately turns to him, and Edwin at this time only wipes the finger with which he touched Mikhail. But when Mikhail gets out of bed and sees the young lady, he immediately lies back down. He wraps himself in a blanket and asks why she's there. The girl replies that she missed Mikhail and that's why she came to visit. However, the guy insists she shouldn't have, and when Alice asks if he really missed her, he screams that he didn't at all. The girl then turns to Mikhail and asks if he can look out for a second, since she brought a friend, but the guy claims that Alice has no friends, and the girl replies that she has some, and it only seems to him that she doesn't have any, after which she tells the guy to get up, because they will all be friends together, and asks if he agrees. However, when the young man turns around and looks at Edwin, he becomes a little scared, and he asks what's wrong, because he doesn't look human. He then asks the main character if Mikhail knows this is bad manners and asks if she should complain to Evan. However, the young man says that he is ashamed, so she should not speak, and then tells the main character to apologize. The girl then introduces them to each other and claims that this is Edwin and that he is also the young master and family of Duke Esteban, after which he asks if they are brothers, and their sister asks how they can be friends. The young lady then asks if that's true. However, the brunette immediately replies that no, they are not brother and sister. After which the girl replies that she has a different mother and father, so they are more like friends, and the young lady realizes that, frankly speaking, they really aren't related. At that moment, the doctor enters the room and confirms that Mikhail is awake. And the girl at this time is thinking why it seems to her that she was just hit. The girl then turns to Evan, and he asks the lady what is going on, and the girl only asks if she can have a few words with him, after which the guy says he doesn't mind. The main character tells the two to stay there for now, because she needs to tell Evan something. Mikhail, shocked, asks what she's talking about and tells them not to leave. However, the girl already goes out with Mikhail's brother and says that for now the guy should apologize to Edwin, after which the two remain in the room. But when Mikhail turns to the guy, he sees that he's looking at him coldly, and the young man, a little frightened, asks what he needs. Edwin, meanwhile, merely tosses the flower wreath onto the floor. Mikhail then asks what the boy is doing, and he just steps on the wreath, after which the young man with blonde hair pushes him away. She glares at the guy, who stares back coldly. Meanwhile, the main character sits with the doctor, and the guy asks what the lady wanted to talk to him about, and the girl claims that she has a question, and she asks if he hides his magical abilities from those around him, to which the guy replies that yes, and in theory, he should have already visited the temple. Well, he thinks that it's better to keep it a secret until Mikhail grows up, and In any case, the magic wasn't that strong when he was born. The main character then asks if the Duke asked questions about Edwin's wounds. And these are not the kind of wounds that can be healed with ordinary medicine. The doctor then replies that he made a good ointment and used it, and the young lady understands that it is written on his face that this is a lie, after which she claims that she came there because of the words she heard from the Duke. Evan asks if she's talking about Duke Esteban, and the girl replies that yes, and the Duke said that people endowed with magical abilities will be assigned to the Imperial Castle. The guy then asks what she is talking about her ice, claiming that she is sure that the Duke already suspects Evan. And besides, the girl understands that with the help of the temple, it will not be difficult to identify the gifted ones, and if he is exposed, she will immediately seize him. And now the young lady asks why he doesn't leave for a while. Alice understands that her desire to send him away is perfectly understandable. After all, in a few days, the Duke will visit the capital to participate in a conference on the Southern War, and then when the war breaks out, they will go to the battlefield. And then the Duke will take Evan, so if he is not there in the winter, he can avoid his fate. Now the main character tells Evan to believe her, because this is all for him and Mikhail. The young man thinks for a moment and realizes that even though it is a 7-year-old child speaking, it is not easy to ignore her words. After all, recently the young lady has been behaving in such a way that even as an adult he is amazed. The girl then wants to say something but hears Mikhail screaming for the guy to get out, after which they immediately run into the room. And Alice asks what happened, but when she sees the two fighting on the floor, she's very surprised. Meanwhile, Mikhail screams, "Who the hell is this guy, and what right does he have to ruin someone else's property?" Evan tells Mikhail to stop, but when the young man doesn't do this, he just grabs him. Meanwhile, Miko screams that he hates the guy and that he's a scoundrel. The main character approaches Edwin and offers to examine him. Afterwards, she looks at his face and insists there are scratches, so everything is fine. But then the girl also looks at all the mess they've made and wonders what happened. Meanwhile, Evan turns to Mikhail and tells him to apologize to Mr. Edwin. However, the boy replies that he would never do that since he started it. However, the doctor then addresses his brother by his full name and claims he doesn't remember teaching him to be rude. However, the young man then tearfully claims that Edwin knocked over his wreath first, trampled it, and even cursed at him. The protagonist then approaches the brunette and asks if he ruined Mikhail's wreath, after which she asks why he did this, but the young man remains silent, and the main character then sighs and goes to Mikhail and asks if he is very upset. The girl also claims that Edwin lived for a long time in a small, dark room, which he left only a few days ago, and that he'd been there since early childhood. Mikhail then asks how that could be, and the young lady claims that it is scary to even imagine and asks if this is true. However, she claims that Edwin held on very steadfastly, but making friends is still not easy for him. So the young lady turns to Mikhail and asks if he can understand her. However, the young man then reveals that the boy trampled on his wreath, which he intended to give to the young lady. The main character then heads to the place where the trampled wreath lies, after which she picks up the flowers and tells Mikhail to look, because there are still undamaged flowers left there. And if Mikhail makes a bag of incense with their help, she will leave it in her room, and she thinks it's a wonderful gift. The young man only blushes afterward, then takes the flowers, and the main character says that Mikhail is like an angel, and the young man tells her not to treat him like a child. Edwin, observing all this, understands that Alice values this boy so much that he mustn't be harmed. He also understands that he thought he could always be with Alice after leaving that room. But too many things are important to her, and the guy is now wondering if Alice really likes more than just him. At that moment, the girl turns to the guy and tells him to come over. The young man does so, and the main character strokes his head. After which she asserts that the wreath is important to Mikhail, so she asks if Edwin can promise that he will no longer take other people's things without permission. The young man remains silent in response, and the main character then tells them to apologize to each other. However, when they look at each other, Mikhail looks irritated and Edwin upset, and when the young lady looks at them, she thinks they're about to fight. Mikhail then yells that he hates the guy, so he should leave. Then the doctor blocks their path to each other, and the girl wonders what's wrong with them and what's wrong with Edwin. Then a thought crosses her mind, and the girl realizes that despite the changes, this is the world of BL. And the sensual story in which Edwin saves Mikhail with the help of magic has changed, but in its place a new storyline has formed. And it's called From Hate to Love, or Confrontation, even though they're childhood friends. That same evening, the girl thinks about how she told the doctor to leave, and she wonders if Evan will believe her. She also realizes she needs to decide what to do if he doesn't leave. And if he does, how will Edwin and Mikhail's relationship develop? After all, the story of childhood friends reuniting isn't so bad, and if they do reunite, they'll definitely have a fight. After which, the young lady is about to fall asleep. However, at that very moment, he heard a crash and got out of bed, heading for the door. But when he opened the door and looked into the hallway, he saw no one there. The young lady is then a little surprised and wonders what just happened. A little while later, the girl is already walking down the hallway, wondering how many days have passed. It's possible to fall into eternal sleep like that. On the first day, she thought it was a ghost, but after a few days, she realized that it was just a mockery, and every night when she falls asleep. Then someone kicks the bedroom door as if he can't bother her directly, so it prevents her from sleeping normally. And she doesn't know whether someone might be taking revenge on Karina, or whether someone doesn't like the fact that she's treated like an aristocrat. Now the girl sighs and wonders if this kind of attitude towards a 7-year-old child is childish, and besides, she doesn't sleep well. Maybe that's why she feels so dizzy. After which, the young lady begins to fall, but then someone screams her name and grabs her. The young man's books tumble down the stairs. It turns out to be Edwin, and the guy asks if Alice is okay, to which she thanks him and claims she hasn't been sleeping well lately. But she realizes something almost happened. The girl also claims that this will not work, and she thinks that she will return to her room, but the young man grabs her hand and offers to go together because he will take her there. As the two walk down the corridor, the young man asks Alice if she has trouble sleeping, and the girl replies that she has nightmares, after which the young man asks what kind of nightmares. The girl insists that these are dreams in which someone hates her. Alyanushka then stops, and the main character, noticing this, asks what is going on, but the young man is only interested in why one could hate Alice, and how one could hate her. The protagonist then ponders how to explain everything to her. Not long after, they find themselves at the door of the young lady's room, and the main character asks if the guy has classes again today, if so. Then he can read this book in her room, to which the young man agrees and the girl thanks him. After which, the young lady tells him not to close the door and to come in. The guy does just that, but when he turns to Alice, he sees that she is already asleep, after which he covers the girl with a blanket. And he looks at her. However, then the young man suddenly senses someone's presence and turns toward the corridor, and she catches the eye of one of her servants. A little while later, the main character opens her eyes and, rising from the couch, declares that she hasn't slept so well in a long time. But then the girl looks at the ground and sees Edwin there, asking why he's there. The boy then wakes up and claims someone is coming, but when the girl looks at the door, he claims there's no one there. However, at that very moment, the butler enters the room and greets the young master and the young lady, and the main character then thinks that someone really has come. At this time, the butler claims that his lordship is inviting the lady to dinner, and a little while later they are already heading there. When they go there, the maids look at them a little strangely. Meanwhile, the main character and her boyfriend arrive in the dining room for dinner. The girl then greets his lordship, and the young man does the same, after which they sit down and begin their meal. The man then says it's a good thing Edwin came with her, because when he called him, the boy didn't even want to listen. The main character then looks at the guy with a little surprise, but he just eats silently. The girl thanks him for the invitation with a trembling voice, but the Duke says that it is too noisy, so he suggests that they eat silently, after which the girl does so. But when you eat this dish, you think that it is incredibly delicious and that being cooked by a chef is on a completely different level. Edwin, meanwhile, hands Alice his steak and tells her to have another one, as he's already full. The young lady then takes it, and the boy also claims that the old man cut it into pieces so she wouldn't choke. The main character then realizes that the young man simply crushed him and wonders what he's talking about, after which she thanks him and says that she'll definitely try it. The girl is also proud of having raised him so well. The Duke, meanwhile, claims that the girl's relationship with Dr. Elgar has noticeably improved, and he told him about it. The girl changed the lock on the tower and promised to stay at the estate. Alice insists that Evan is a good doctor, while the man says he remembers the girl hated him before. And she remembers once causing a stir because her doctor had changed. The young lady then asks him what he's talking about, but then remembers. One day, the girl struck the young man with a whip, and she screamed at him, asking how he could be so impudent, and also screaming that she hated him and should let him go away. Now, remembering this, the main character is shocked, and he claims that today he is a friend, and tomorrow an enemy, after which the Duke claims that he has never heard such an expression before, and the young lady mentally apologizes to the doctor and understands that she will definitely apologize later. But the Duke insists that he invited her to dinner tonight anyway, because he has something to tell her. She will have to testify in court. The girl then asks which court, and the Duke replies that this is the trial of Karina Gannett, and the young lady is surprised and also understands that she thought it was a family matter and he would deal with it himself. But the case went to court, and it is surprising that with such a character he leaves Karina alive, after which the young lady thinks that this is strange, and suddenly she feels sad. The girl also wonders if it's normal that she still has Alice's feelings. Edwin at this time asks if the girl is okay, and the Duke claims that it's not easy for children. He asks if she understands that her mother wanted to put her into eternal sleep, but even so, she's sad. The protagonist then wonders how he knows, and whether he really interrogated Karina's maid, and also tries to understand why the woman tried to get rid of her. But the fact that she could have sent Rube along with the sheet of paper is still not revealed, and now the young lady claims that it is her fault and she wanted attention, so she hid her mother's wedding ring. The Duke also knows that her mother's engagement ring is big and sparkly, which is why she loved it. But the little girl understands that she actually liked the Duchess's ring more. Edwin at this time turns to His Excellency and states that he wants to hear more about the poison, and the man tells the boy to think about calling him Dad, after which the young man remains silent and continues his meal. The main character understands that she needs to quickly eat and run away, because it's as if the rich man is absorbing all the air around him. After which the girl continues to eat, and Edwin, having finished his meal, stares at her, after which the Duke also finishes his tea and looks at the young lady. The girl then cannot stand such a look and thanks him brightly for dinner, after which she asserts that they will go, but the man then turns to her and says that being a witness is a mandatory matter for the judge, and there's no way to get out of it like last time, but the young lady insists she didn't run away. Then she sees Edwin looking at her and insisting she won't run away and will do what she has to. A short time later, they're heading down the corridor, and the young lady sighs, realizing she didn't expect to feel so flustered and nervous. She also realizes she can't think of a single thought. After this, one of the butlers approaches the young lady and states that, with great respect, he must ask her for a favor. He asks if she would help him cut his hair. The protagonist then asks him what he's talking about, and the man claims that the gentleman's hair has grown a lot, so he has to cut it, but the gentleman does not allow it, and he thinks that with the help of the lady, he will somehow get out of it. A little while later, the main character claims it's simple, and she'll help. The girl also claims she's good at it, while the butler, shocked, asks why the mistress needs a bowl. However, the young lady tells him not to worry, as she used to cut all her friends' hair like that. The butler then tries to point out that this isn't just her friend, but then only sighs. And a little while later, the main character finishes, and raising the bowl, claims that they can look at the intermediate result, but when the girl raises the bowl, the butler almost faints. The young lady simply says that Edwin looks very good, and the young man blushes a little, after all, from the compliment. A little while later, the protagonist is already outside and thinks the weather is wonderful. Anna then turns to the lady and claims she's in a good mood today, and wonders if anything has made her happy. Meanwhile, the main character realizes that no one came yesterday and she never woke up. The girl also claims that she slept very well last night, and Anna claims that at her age an elephant is extremely important and asks if the lady went for a walk. The girl replies no, and she's going to meet Edwin, as they'd agreed to go to town together. The maid then asks if the young lady is afraid of the young master. The young lady then wonders if they are afraid. Anna replies that of course he is still a child, but when she looks into his eyes, she becomes scared without any good reason, and even at that age, the gentleman is strong enough to defeat most of his lordship's knights. And moreover, it seems to her that there are no people there at all, except for the mistress, who are not afraid of him, but the girl replies that not to that extent, and the maid replies that this is true, because she can't even imagine how surprised she is when the girl smiles. The main character then sighs and realizes that apparently she just has such an aura, and she also thinks that even now, the guy has the opportunity to spend most of his childhood among people. Edwin from the original story was deprived of this, and if we continue to work on his head, or better yet, educate him, then everything can change, and now the girl turns to Anna. And he also tells her to keep an eye on him, because their Edwin is growing up to be extraordinary. The maid then asks why the mistress looks at Master Edwin, but she says that in any case, she said she was going to town, so she will prepare everything necessary. The girl also ponders the question as she looks at the boy and recalls his words about them not being brother and sister. The young lady also ponders what that means, and she understands that the mistake she made earlier can no longer be corrected. If it really left a bad taste, then the guy wouldn't follow her the way he does now. And the girl wonders if he might be hostile to the very idea of family. Then the young lady hears someone calling her name, and when she turns around, she hears someone calling her. He sees that it's Edwin. The young lady also sees the cap on his head and thinks it's cute, asking how he knew she was coming. The guy replies that he did it by the sound of footsteps and the smell, and the main character says that someone is asking if there was fencing training today and also asks where his sword is. The young man claims he got dirty, and that's why he didn't take it. A body lies nearby in the bushes. At this time, the main character turns to the guy and asks if he will go to the city with her, to which he agrees. And then he turns back into those bushes, but the young lady asks if he is interested in where they are going. Well, the young man replies that he will go wherever Alice wants. The girl replies yes, then asks if he remembers this place. A short time later, the main character runs into the bakery and addresses Mikhail. The young man then greets Alice joyfully, but when he sees Edwin standing next to her, he becomes angry. The protagonist asserts that good children should greet each other when they meet, and then tells them to do the same. However, at this time, Mikhail only screams for the guy to leave him alone and hits him on the hat. At the same moment, it falls to the floor, and when Mikhail sees the guy's hair, he just starts laughing loudly. He's practically crying from laughter and asks what's going on, and the doctor asks Mikhail to stop. At this time, Edwin asks Alice why he is angry, and the girl replies that it is because such an attitude spoils the mood. A little while later, Mikhail is already sitting quietly, and his brother says that he needs to discuss something with the lady, so let them sit with Mr. Edwin. The guy then asks what exactly and says that he will go with them, but the main character claims that if he beats Edwin in a staring contest, he will go with them, to which the young man cries out why. And the main character asks what it is and whether the guy thinks that he won't be able to defeat Edwin, to which the young man is only surprised. After which, she begins to stare at the guy. The young lady realizes that, if she looks at him that way, Mikhail is actually more morally stable, and after all, tenacity is a core skill of the protagonist. After which the main character sits down at a table nearby and asks if Evan has thought about what they discussed last time. The guy replies that he was very worried but still decided to stay. The girl then asks if she can find out why, and the young man replies that there are many people close to him there, and to be honest, he had initially decided to leave and even started looking for a place to stay. But before leaving, he began to worry about the lady and the young gentleman, and also the thought that he would have to leave the disadvantaged residents for whom he cares does not give him peace. At this time, Mikhail is losing a staring contest, and his brother claims that he does not think that giving up everything is the best option, because every time he finds himself on the verge of losing his power, he will be able to get out of a difficult situation thanks to an amazing coincidence of circumstances, and he thinks that this is God's will so that if he is in danger, he believes the goddess will protect him, and this time he asks if the lady will also take care of him. Alice agrees and asserts that she has nothing to add, and that the boy should be careful always and everywhere, to which the young man replies that he understands. A little while later, the main character is already in the estate, and the maid tells the mistress that the preparations are complete. The girl then claims that this is the first time she has worn such clothes, and understands that this day has finally come. The maid also wishes her mistress a good journey, and she says that upon her return, she will definitely prepare her a large portion of her favorite dessert, to which the young lady agrees and thanks Anna, after which she heads outside and apologizes for being late. But when he sees Evan there, he asks, a little surprised, why he is there, and the guy replies that he will go with her. And Michael, looking out from behind his brother's shoulders, asserts that he will also go. The young lady then, shocked, asks why, but then the Duke addresses her and claims he called them. The protagonist, shocked, wonders why, and what's going on. A short time later, they find themselves in the courtroom. Edwin claims that 300 years ago, this estate belonged to the Grand Duke of Delphios, and he organized a rebellion and slit the prince's throat, after which the buildings began to be used for legal proceedings. The main character then asks the guy how he knows, and he replies that he read about the art of traveling around the capital in a collection that she bought, and the main character then says that now it's clear. At this time, Evan claims that this is also his first time in a court session, and then the young people turn to him and ask how this happened, and it is also stated that she no longer runs away, but Evan still accompanies her to the capital. The guy then replies that nothing can be done because it is the Duke's order, and also tells the girl not to worry because his lordship is simply very worried about the lady. The main character, looking at him, thinks what a naive soul he is, and also does not understand what to do with him, after which she turns to Edwin and Mikhail and says that they are coming after us. But when she looks at these guys and how carefree they are, she realizes that her shoulders feel heavy. After that, they enter the courtroom. The protagonist understands that there isn't a single nobleman in the former world who hasn't heard about what happened, and they know her. The girl also understands that she was in a good mood just minutes ago. At this time, the aristocrats whisper among themselves and claim that the child is the son of Duke Esteban, and his hair is really black, and he also looks very much like His Highness, because even from afar, you can see how beautiful the child is. The main character thinks about how awkward she feels, and realizes that in situations like this, the main character attracts attention. She then turns to the guy and asks if everything is okay. But the guy asks what's wrong. And the main character claims that people are looking at him and asks if he feels hostility or embarrassment, but the young man remains silent after that. And then he places his hand on the young lady's hand and assures her that everything is now all right, and the main character, taking his hand, says, okay. Meanwhile, the Duke is standing elsewhere. Then someone asks if this child's name is Alice, and the Duke replies that, yes, and another person claims that apparently this girl is friends with the Duke's son, to which he only remains silent, and a little while later the trial is declared open. The red-haired woman is brought into the room, and then the court hearing begins. The young woman also gives her testimony, and when the judge delivers her verdict, he states that the accused's name is Karina Gannett. The following punishments are attributed to her: imprisonment, violence, torture, blackmail, extortion of money and jewelry from the permanent servants of the duchy. In addition, the defendant poured poison into the tea of the late Duchess Elijah Esteban for a long time, which caused her to fall into an eternal sleep. After which the judge asks whether the accused admits her guilt, to which the woman replies yes, and the young lady thinks that this is strange, since under normal circumstances Karina would have created a scandal in an attempt to prove that she was set up. So now the little girl is wondering why she is so calm, while the judge is claiming that Karina Gannett has committed numerous crimes, each of which falls within the category of serious crimes, or especially serious ones. So the sentence is deprivation of citizenship and lifelong expulsion from the empire. After this, the court hearing ends, and the main character thinks this is all very strange. A commoner poisoned a duchess and was supposed to be executed for it, but the duke was acting on the side, and the little girl wonders why he would do this. Then she wonders if Karina has other secrets she doesn't know about. Someone approaches the lady and asks if everything is okay. It turns out to be Evan, and he asks how about going for a walk before they leave, because he will ask permission from his lordship, to which the young lady replies that this is excellent and she has always wanted to go to one place. Well, then someone turns to Gane Jr. and claims that the duke is calling her, after which the young lady is a little surprised, and the servant claims that the duke asked her to come alone and the others can wait, and also the knight will escort them to the restroom. Edwin claims that he will go with her, but the servant claims that even the young master cannot disobey the duke's order. However, the young man then looks menacingly at the servant, which frightens him, and the main character turns to Edwin and asserts that everything is fine because there is nothing special about it, and she goes alone. The guy asks if he can't even stand outside the door, and the girl then turns to the guy and claims that they will probably need to talk about her mother. But she doesn't want the guy to remember bad things, so let him wait a little because she'll be back soon. After which the young man just nods and the main character thanks him, after which she turns to the servant and assures them they can go. A short time later, they approach one of the offices, and the servant claims to have brought Gane Jr., after which he tells her to enter. The young lady does so, but then sees another man there and is a little surprised. The girl then lifts her dress and greets him, asking if His Majesty had enjoyed her meal. He also claims that meeting him is part of their family. The girl kneels and respects age hierarchy. After all, this is the most important aspect of etiquette in an Eastern country. So they remain silent, and the main character wonders what she's doing. The young lady realizes that in the original, the Emperor was a powerful villain. He was also aware of Michael's powers, so he tried to get rid of him, but his plans failed, so Edwin began to pursue him, and then the Emperor tried to evacuate along the route indicated by Duke Esteban. But nevertheless, Edwin grabbed him, and then the Duke, along with Karina, lost their heads, after which the guy ascended the throne and his obsession grew into madness. The Emperor is the most powerful person, according to the rules of this world, and she hardly has any area, so she unconsciously chose the best option to introduce herself. But now the girl sits and wonders why they called her. The man insists that the girl looks very much like him, and asks how old she is, to which the little girl replies that she's 7. The Emperor is silent for a moment, then declares it will be a long time, and the Duke agrees. The young lady then considers how long it will be and what very similar means. The Emperor then asks if she knows the meaning of the word burden, and the young lady insists that such a thing shouldn't be in a little girl's head. The Emperor pauses for a moment, then asks if the girl learned it from the Duke. However, the Duke tells His Majesty that this is also the first time he hears about this, after which the man only laughs and says that this is a rather funny child, and also asks how many years are left for the children, and he answers that there should be about 10. His Majesty also claims that leaving the girl in the palace is too dangerous, but also outside the palace, so the Duke suggests leaving her in the estate for now until the issue is investigated. The young lady then silently asks them not to talk as if she isn't there. The Emperor then asks if they will keep the girl in the Duke's family, to which he replies yes. The man then insists that they will do just that, because there's nothing they can do about it, and also says that they'll see each other in 10 years. The young lady only remains silent in response, and then leaves the room. The young lady then turns to the Duke, but he only asks how the girl knew it was His Majesty standing before her. The little girl is a little surprised, and the man asks how she knew it was the Emperor when she first saw him. The girl claims that he sat in a place of honor and spoke with the Duke in a private setting, so the person occupying the position of the highest ducal probably comes from a royal family. And if we add to this the honorable age, then we can guess that in front of me the Emperor Duke then claims that the girl is smarter than he thought, and the main character thinks what this means, after which she turns to His Highness and asks if he knows she's only 7 years old. The Duke asks why he's asking, and the girl only smiles, understanding that she's afraid he's handing her over to the Emperor for some unknown purpose, which is why she's asking, after which she claims it's difficult to explain, and the man insists there's no point in asking, after which the young lady thinks everything is correct. The man meanwhile claims he doesn't know what she was thinking. But even if the winged ones raise a fuss for no reason, that's not his problem. The main character then asks him what he's talking about, and the man tells her to prepare a carriage for them, and the servants agree. After which he tells the lady to come with him. The girl then realizes she still needs to ask the Duke why he summoned Evan today, but he's already gone. As the Duke heads off in his carriage, one of the servants addresses him. He claims that his lordship also seems to like the younger Gane. The man replies that the girl resembles a duckling just released into the garden, after which he also asks if the boy found what he asked for. He replies that he's been searching for the Rube tea vendor for a long time, but there are still no leads, and he believes she may have already fled to another country. The man also asks what the temple says. The servant replies that he contacted him 4 days ago, but they are unwilling to cooperate. The Duke then asks who will be the next priest. The servant replies that Priest Raphael and the blonde man claim that he's an old man again, and apparently being close to eternal sleep equals being close to God. The servant insists that people live in the temple too, and there's no other choice. Moreover, it is impossible to say for sure whether the temple will now remain under God's protection. However, if a person with power appears, then he will be able to concentrate all the power around himself, and the guy claims that Evan Elgar certainly healed the young master, so he asks if the guy really has magical abilities. The Duke replies that they need to observe him for a while. The brown-haired man claims that he constantly receives answers from the magic tower that without the temple's involvement, it will be quite difficult to determine the presence of magical powers. So he thinks it will take a long time. The Duke then argues that even if more research funding is needed, the guy should spare no expense, to which he agrees, and also asks if surveillance could be established. Evan Elgar. The Duke replies no, and Edwin will notice immediately. Besides, Evan is busy with something else. The servant then asks what the master is talking about, and he claims the girl is not as weak as she seems at first glance. Therefore, it is still too early for her to fall into eternal sleep. At this time, the little girl is near the sea, despite seeing one ship as Karina is taken away. The young lady then watches this, while Evan addresses the lady. Alice then claims she's fine, and thinks it would be weird to come up and say hello. She also claims that her mother will be unhappy, after which she thinks that the Duke, the Emperor, and Karina clearly have a plan that she is unaware of. Well, now the little girl takes 2 boys by the hands and understands that they are in a hurry because the secondary characters are not able to defeat the main characters, and her protagonists will spend their childhood without traumatic shocks. They will grow up mentally healthy. A year later, the girl is already lying on the grass, thinking about the plot from sworn enemies to childhood friends. At this time, Evan turns to the lady and claims that it is not yet enough outside to sleep there, but the young lady says that the day is so nice and asks if Mikhail is here. Evan replies that he said he was going into the backyard and would be back, but the girl seems cold, so he should go back inside first. Then the young lady stared at the guy. He asks if there's something on his face, to which the girl replies no, insisting he's grown into a good man. Marie then claims she's saying something strange again, and the young lady understands that after that winter of upheaval, another winter has passed, and the war between the 2 empires is heating up on the southern front. Evan still works as the Duke's family doctor. Edwin didn't put anyone into a crippling sleep, but, as in the original, he spent a long time training with the knights or at his own training ground. To help the protagonists get closer, she often arranged meetings. And today is no exception, so the young lady is now heading to where Mikhail is supposed to be. Evan says it's strange, since the guy said he'd definitely be there. The young lady says he couldn't have gotten lost, even though Mikhail has never been to this side of the garden. The girl also insists she'll go this way, and Evan should look for the boy on the other side. The guy agrees, but says the lady would be better off returning to their estate, as she was recently in bed with a fever. The girl replies that she feels fine today, and that the day is similar, and then she says they'll see each other later. At this time, Mikhail is completely alone and lost, and wonders what to do. after which he screams out whether there is anyone there and screams with all his might. The young man also tries to call his brother, but then he hears some sounds, and when he approaches he sees that it's Edwin. The brunette is training at the time. And Mikhail, watching this, thinks how cool it is. But then Edwin turns to him, and the young man gets a little startled. He then approaches the guy and asks what he's doing there, since they have a meeting planned for today. After which the brunette just looks at him, and Mikhail insists he's not lost and is simply strolling. He also insists they hurry to the garden. However, at that very moment, a sword blade passes near his hands, and the young man is a little surprised, after which he looks at his hands, in which there used to be a wreath, and in shock he asks why he did it. The young man also screams at the guy to pay him back, telling him who he is to constantly ruin something that doesn't belong to him. He then reaches out to the guy and insists that this won't do. However, Edwin grabs his hand, after which Mikhail screams for the guy to let him go, but he only grabs the young man by the face, and he begins to use force, after which his eyes seem to turn black, and after this, Mikhail also unconsciously uses force to protect himself. The brunette looks at Mikhail and thinks something's wrong again. The young man then asks what's wrong with him, as his eyes were so eerie right now, as if they were smoking. However, Edwin grabs the boy's face again, causing him to ask in shock what he's doing and tell him to let go. Meanwhile, the brunette wonders why this boy is okay. After all, everything he touches instantly dries up and disappears. But at this moment, someone else reaches out to Edwin, and it turns out to be the main character. Mikhail then turns to Alice. The girl then asks, smiling, what they're doing. She also can't believe Edwin is stroking Mikhail's cheek. But their relationship never really worked out. So she went out of her way, but behind her back, they were flirting with each other. Meanwhile, Mikhail turned to Alice and said that the guy had torn her wreath again. However, the guy is then shocked, and the main character asks what's going on, but red liquid is pouring out of her nose. The girl also wonders why everything is floating, and then they fall to the floor. The young lady then wonders if she hasn't done enough. Everything was going so peacefully, and she thought that nothing could destroy the idol, but it seems the original plot will soon be destroyed. A short time later, the girl opens her eyes and wonders why she's there. Evan then turns to the mistress, worried, and asks if she's awake. Mikhail is also worried about the young lady, and when she gets up, Evan claims she's anemic, so he tells her not to make any sudden movements. Alice asks what happened, and the doctor replies that the children told her. She had an epistaxis and fainted. He examined her, and then she suddenly felt unwell. So the doctor asked if she had been feeling unwell recently. The young lady replies that there is no such thing, and there was nothing like that. After which she realizes that she cannot believe that her health has deteriorated so much and that she suddenly lost consciousness. At this time, Mikhail shouts at Edwin that he didn't even help when the young lady fell, and when she woke up, he didn't visit, so the guy asks if Edwin really considers himself a friend. At this point, Mikhail's brother tells the boy not to be rude to the young gentleman, but he cries out that he's not being rude and needs to be punished. The main character then turns to the boy, but he only looks away then, clenching his fists, replies that no, he's no longer his friend. After which the young man and his everything turns around and leaves the room. Mikhail is still yelling and very angry after this. The young lady just watches it all silently. A little while later, the girl remarks on how nice the weather is outside, but she can only observe all this from home. The maid turns to her mistress and says she might get caught again, so she should at least put on a blanket. Alice replies that the window is not open, and what other wind could there be there? But the maid replies that even a seemingly trifle can harm a person when they are unwell, so the picnic location was moved. Anna also says there's nothing to be done, and that the lady lost consciousness a few days ago, so Mr. Evans strictly ordered her not to go outside. The main character then asks if Edwin will be coming today. She realizes she hasn't seen him since that incident, and he hasn't left and still lives at the estate, so she wonders why he's avoiding her. She also remembers him saying he's no longer her friend, and she thinks why, suddenly, and even a year later, the relationship between these two was so bad that she began to worry, but in fact they became closer, and the girl thought that she would stay alive because she managed to change the original plot. However, her health continues to deteriorate for unknown reasons, and this time Edwin treats her like a stranger. So the girl wonders if this is an illusion, to make her think everything is going according to plan. And now she begins to cry. The maid is surprised and asks if her mistress is in pain. A little while later, the main characters are already sitting at the table with Mikhail and Evan. But the girl looks at Edwin's spot and claims he's apparently taken. Mikhail then, a little irritated, claims the guy said they weren't friends, so he asks why the girl wants to see him. The young lady only sighs after this, and the doctor recalls how he came to the estate that morning. Then he saw Master Edwin, and the boy simply claimed that he needed to know something. And he can only ask him about this, so now the doctor turns to the lady and asks her not to be so upset because of the young gentleman. The young lady is then a little surprised and asks if he's spoken to Edwin and what he knows. Evan replies that he was asked to keep it a secret, and that's just how things worked out. After which he asserts that the girl is still the young gentleman's dear friend. Mikhail then merely sighs in disappointment and says he'll go to the restroom. The young man then leaves, and Evan turns to the lady and insists he needs to say one more thing. He then claims he must go to war, causing the young lady to be shocked and ask why, and if the Duke really summoned him. The girl also says she'll try to talk to him, and I haven't been feeling well lately, so she'll ask him to think it over again, but the guys claim that it's not his lordship's fault, but the number of wounded is growing, and that's why military doctors and nurses are in short supply. They can't cope with the number of casualties. And mobilization is taking place across the country, so he'll be sent there too. The main character then realizes this with tears in her eyes. What if things go according to the original, then Evan will lose his life, and now she grabs him by the clothes and then screams, asking Togo not to leave, because if he leaves, he will fall into eternal sleep. Evan then turns to the lady, a little puzzled, and she claims that the guy is a good person, so he will use magic to the point of exhaustion, and so bad people will notice him and want to use him, which will lead to a bad end. Or he could plunge into eternal sleep, heading into the epicenter of battle without attempting to save many lives. The young man then silently looks at his mistress, then strokes her head, and claims he doesn't know why she's so worried about this. But he is much more selfish than it seems, and the guy claims that Mikhail needs him and also has to look after the lady, and he is not so devoted as to sacrifice himself. So the lady needn't worry, because he'll return alive. The young lady then wipes away her tears and declares that she wants to give him something. She also hands over a pendant and claims it's a coming-of-age gift. It's a column, made with a ground stone, and the girl claims the color symbolizes good luck. Alice also asks if he promises to return safe and sound, after which the guy gets up from his seat. He embraces the young lady and promises. Meanwhile, in Esteban's capital, the Duke emerges from his carriage and is greeted by one of the servants, after which the man asks if something is wrong. The butler then claims that young Master Edwin has arrived and that he has been sitting in the living room since the morning, and also said that he will wait until the Duke arrives, after which the man goes into the room where his son is sitting, and she asks why he showed up unannounced, even though he's running away from home just like Alice Guinea. The young man remains silent after that, and the ticking of a clock can be heard in the room. The Duke then stands up and states that if the guy has nothing to say, he will go because he has a lot to do. But the young man then turns to his father. He claims a strange energy has manifested within him, after which his father merely smirks and asks the boy to explain in more detail. The young man then claims that sometimes, if he touches anything living, it turns to ash. The man then asks if the power has really developed so much, after which he claims that this is wonderful news, and the guy then asks what the father is talking about, after which he tells him to tell. The man then sits back down and claims that the magic contained within him is what they call devilish, and that it is a rare gift that appears once every few generations. The young man then asks if it's true that the devil was among Esteban's ancestors, and his father replies that he is, and that he is the source of the boy's strength. This is the true reason for his imprisonment in the tower. After all, if such powerful magic isn't controlled, disaster is inevitable, and his wound is a mortal body's reaction to the devil's power. It cannot be cured by traditional methods. And the boy was destined to fall into a crippled sleep because he would not be able to control the power, and the curse placed on the chains was supposed to suppress its influence. But the young man managed to recover, and his weak human body became stronger enough to overcome magic, and after his story, he believes that the news is really good. He can't believe that his son is endowed with such abilities. But the young man replies that he cannot control it, and Alice fainted. The man then says that's what the boy came for. The young man asks if his father knows what to do. The Duke replies that of course he doesn't have that kind of power, but he does bear the name Esteban, and to master magic capable of taking lives requires practice, and that will take a lot of time. Edwin asks what his father wants, and his father answers. He wants the boy to fight in the war on the Southern Front, to which the boy agrees but claims he has conditions too. The man then tells his son to tell him what those conditions are. A short time later, the main character, already shocked, asks if Edwin is really going to fight. The butler replies yes, and the young lady exclaims, "Is this a joke?" The child is only 8 years old, and what other war could await him? But the man remains silent in response, and the girl screams, "Is he really playing around like he's completely lost his mind?" The butler then claims he doesn't know himself, but is certain there's a reason. He also claims the young gentleman gave her a letter. Alice asks when he's leaving, and the butler replies tomorrow, and says he'll be leaving straight from the capital. The young lady then snatches the letter from his hands and heads into the hallway. The maid asks what the mistress is doing, and she says she'll be out for a bit. After this, the girl heads to the capital and wonders if this is because history is developing differently, and the guy was supposed to stay in the tower for another 10 years, but now he has to go through difficult trials on the battlefield. And the young lady wonders if this is because there aren't enough difficulties on the protagonist's path. But what if everything returns to normal? Edwin will do something irreparable, and then Evan and she won't be alive, so the girl wonders what she's done. But then she finally realizes she shouldn't exaggerate so much. A short time later, she runs out of the carriage, sees another carriage with the Duke standing next to it, and shouts Edwin's name. She then asks where he is, claiming the Duke left early in the morning. The young lady wonders if he really sent him to the battlefield, considering the boy is only 8 years old. However, the Duke notes that such an examination is necessary, and the heir's abilities must be tested. Alice wonders who is risking their lives for this, because what will happen if the guy falls into eternal sleep, and the Duke replies that then they will understand that this was his limit. And the main character says that there's no one more terrible, because even Mother isn't so crazy. One of the servants then turns to the mistress and tells her to be more careful with her words. The Duke replies that it was Edwin's choice, not his, and that he came to him first. The girl then asks why, but the Duke points out that she doesn't have time to talk, so he'll send one of the servants with her and let the girl return home, after which the Duke also states that they won't see each other for 10 years, so let her live in good health. The young lady then watches the carriage drive away, and then opens Edwin's letter. There the guy wrote that they had previously agreed to take care of each other, and she asked that he not put anyone into eternal sleep, after which the young man apologizes and claims that he is terrible because he could not fulfill her request. However, he wrote that Alice likes beautiful things, and these are snowmen, cookies, and also cats, and he remembered everything, and also, upon his return, he will not do anything that she might not like. And the young man asked if they could be friends again. The man who signed this sheet was Edwin, whom Alice considered handsome. The young lady was now counting this sheet. She begins to sob. A little while later, the girl is already sitting by the mirror, and the maid is combing her hair. Afterwards, the main character invites Anna to dine out, and they haven't been shopping in so long. The maid then agrees and claims the weather is also fine. The young lady claims she's the only one without money and asks if Anna will pay, to which the maid replies that their mistress has a great sense of humor. After which, the girl, already prepared, emerges from the estate and says they can go. the young lady realizes that it's already been 10 springs since Edwin and Evan left. The end of the largest and most horrific war in history is far from near, and the girl realizes she hasn't seen Edwin and Evan for 10 years. Then the maids pass by the young lady and look at her, a little puzzled, before moving on. The main character understands that perhaps due to the absence of the head of the family in the estate for the last 10 years, the behavior of the servants has changed, and before Edwin's departure, everything was different. The situation changed when a rumor emerged out of nowhere that the girl was the daughter of the woman who had cast the former duchess into eternal sleep. A short time later, the young lady was already in the city. She understands that it's unknown when the Duke will throw her out of the house, but all this time she's been saving money to avoid being left broke. With these funds, she opened her own pastry business, hiring the Duke's former chef, and she began recreating recipes from her past life. Ultimately, the store became a success, and now the main character stands in front of it and then goes inside. And she claims to own both the wonderful bakery and the building itself. Meanwhile, the chef turns to the boss and says she's arrived, and the girl asks Dennis how sales are going. The woman replies that the cakes turned out so good that even the boss could try them. The young lady then smirks and claims that if things continue like this, she'll be rich. And the woman then also giggles and claims that if this is the case, then the boss will also become rich. And the young lady then suddenly asks what if the Duke, upon his return, is unhappy with the fact that she is taking his people. The chef then turns to the young lady and claims that she arrived on time, so let her try this macaron before leaving. Afterwards, the main character eats it, but at that very moment, someone bursts into the bakery. It turns out to be Mikhail, and he speaks with a slightly irritated tone. He told her not to indulge in sweets. A little while later, they were sitting at a table together with tea and cake. The young lady then handed the guy a piece and told him to try it, because it was very sweet. However, after this, the young man only looks at her a little embarrassedly, and the main character asks if he will be there and that he likes strawberries, to which the young man replies that he will. But then he asks why she's dressed so lightly, and she replies that it's warm outside. The young man replies that he already told her that even an ant wouldn't win against her. So he asks why she is so sure if she gets sick every time the season changes, and the main character then replies that yes, and she understood everything, so her dear doctor is not angry on the train. 2 years ago, the guy became a doctor, and after he was appointed her personal physician, he became overly protective of her, and it was difficult to constantly compare his strong health, thanks to the magical village, with hers. And she can't help but admire how he's so utterly concerned about her. Even compared to Evan, he's more stern. The young man hands her a balloon and tells her to put it on because it's even colder outside. The main character then looks at him and says how beautiful it is, then asks what kind of shawl it is. The guy replies that he bought it on the way there, then looks a little embarrassed. He extends his hand to her, and the main character puts a shawl there for him and asks if he is really giving it and immediately takes it back, but the young man only says that she irritates him. Afterwards, they head under one of the trees, and the guy asks if it really works. The main character insists that the absence of news is also good news, and isn't that true? She then places a pebble on a pile of stones and affirms that both Evan and Edwin will be fine. Mikhail then places a pebble on the pile as well, and the two of them pray. The main character also approaches Mikhail and asks if Evan has contacted him. He replies no, claiming that, as a girl, the absence of Vesti is also good news. Although it's a little strange that he hasn't written once in 10 years, he still thinks his brother is fine. The young lady then thinks this is true and suggests I think about the bad, after which she replies that yes, and they should trust him and continue to wait. The young lady then asks the guy if Edwin wrote, and he asks why. Mikhail also asserts that, given his personality, it's clear he won't write anything. And he didn't tell her anything, he just left, leaving a letter, so he asks why he should worry about such a tenacious person, and still he doesn't like him one bit. The main character then thinks that even so, the guy is probably worried, no matter how much the relationship between the two main characters grows distant and breaks down. But in the end, she knows that everything will come to the original plot, and, of course, she will help their relationship not to fall apart completely, So now the girl turns to Mikhail and claims that in the last year the war has been rapidly moving towards Elgor. Ever since Edwin became commander, Mikhail then turns around and claims it would be nice if it were true, but in any case he hopes the war will end as soon as possible. The Duke enters one of the tents and declares that it's finally over. He also realizes that the situation exceeds all his expectations, and he didn't think that the guy would be so useful, but he has been obediently doing his job for 10 years, after which he turns to one of the roomers and asks how old the guy is now. He replies that he's 17, and the Duke claims the young man has matured, which is a good chance, and that upon returning to the duchy they'll head to the palace. Meanwhile, someone places a newspaper under the young lady's shop and claims fresh news has arrived. The young lady then picks up the newspaper and wonders if it is really at a time like this that she sees the headline that the 10-year war ended with the victory of the Elgor's empire. The main character, shocked, asks if the war is really over. It also states that the Imperial Army will return home in 2 days, and the girl realizes she'll be able to see Edwin. The young lady also looks out onto the street, where everyone is rejoicing that it's finally over and they've won. They also say glory to His Majesty the Emperor and their country. One of the women then tells them to come into her shop because she's serving fruit, and someone else suggests raising a glass and letting the residents come over. Someone else also claims that today is a holiday and everything is free, and the main character then just smirks and thinks about what she wants to say, and then screams that today is also in Delhi Melly. All the baked goods are free. A little while later, the young lady approaches the tower and, when she climbs all those steps, she realizes that this hasn't happened in a long time. And she's terribly exhausted. The young lady also opens the door and realizes that it was so unexpected and that she returned late at night for the first time in 10 years. Well, the young lady now realizes that she can't sleep, so she's constantly tossing and turning, and memories are flooding back. But she met the guy as a child, and they spent a lot of time together. The original Alice, however, was immersed in a crippled sleep. That's where the young lady now spreads a blanket on the ground for her, and when to sit on it. Then she says that tomorrow is her 17th birthday, and the original Alice falls into eternal sleep at 17. The girl then lies down on the blanket and insists that she is not going to bed in a grave there. After which she looks at the whole situation in this room and wonders why Edwin suddenly went to war. But then someone answers that he cannot find the answer to this question. And the young lady gets up in shock and also thinks who it is and then asks who is there, but the guy only comes closer to her and then takes off his hood, and the young lady asks if it's really Edwin. The young lady also recalls the events that are supposed to happen in the novella, and wonders if he's about to put her into eternal sleep. However, the young man only approaches her, after which the girl touches his face and says it really is him. The young man replies yes and tells Alice that he's back. Afterwards, he takes her hand, and the girl asks if he wasn't supposed to be back in a few days, and the pony replies that he missed her. But the main character still wonders how he knew she was there, and the young man just turns around, and the girl realizes that he is still the same, after which she says that it doesn't matter, and with a smile on her face asserts that she missed him too. She also congratulates Edwin on his return, and understands that if he doesn't hate her, then everything is fine, after which she tells the guy to sit down in the council. She just arrived recently, so she's tired, so they can rest a little and go. The girl also claims she has many questions for him, but at that moment she sneezes and the young man puts his hand on her forehead. Alice asks if she has a fever. The guy replies that no, but she's sweating a lot, and if you go out in the cold after sweating, you might catch a cold. Alice replies that everything will be fine, but the guy replies that it won't. The main character then remembers Mikhail, who says that she is no stronger than an ant, and claims that the guy is right when he says to believe, but she is weaker than a speck of dust. The young man then covers her with his cloak and apologizes to Alice. The protagonist then asks what he's doing, but the young man merely lifts her into his arms, after which he carries her out of the tower. The main character then asks what he's doing, but the young man merely stands on the railing of the stairs and then jumps off, and also flies to the very bottom, and the main character then screams what is happening and claims that it is so strange, but the young man at this time turns to Alice and says that they can be friends. After which he lands softly on the floor and claims that they are there, but when he looks at Alice, he sees that she's passed out from fear. A little while later, the guy is already sitting next to her bed. Mikhail then runs into the room worried about the young lady and screams her name, but at that very moment the brunette grabs him by the mouth, and he tells the guy to be quiet. Mikhail then asks what he's doing, but the brunette tells him to first examine the young lady. After which Mikhail says if only he weren't so stupid. But then he examines the young lady, and Mikhail also asks what the symptoms are, and the brunette replies that she was sweating and then got caught in a cold wind, and Alice spent a lot of time in a dusty room and then lost consciousness from fright. Mikhail then asks how this is possible, but claims that in any case there is nothing serious there, since the pulse is normal. And Edwin then asks if he is sure, and also if his hand is steady and whether he is really better than Evan. However, Mikhail then furiously grabs the guy by the clothes and asks if he wants to check, but then the guys hear some kind of rustling. And when they turn around, they see that the young lady has already woken up. Alice, meanwhile, watches all this with puppy dog eyes and apologizes for interrupting them. She also tells them to keep going, to which the boys are surprised and ask what keep going means. After which, the girl sits down on the couch. The brunette asks if she's okay. She replies that she's fine, then asks Mikhail if there's anything he wants to ask Edwin. The guy then turns to him. He asks if he knows where his brother is. Edwin replies no, and Mikhail asks what that means and how he can be a commander. The young man also asks if his brother is alive, and wonders if the boy doesn't know. Edwin claims that the last time he saw him was 9 years ago, and Evan saved him when he was on the verge of falling into a crippling sleep, and soon after that he was redirected to strengthen the forces of the Holy See, and then disappeared. The main character then realizes in shock that in the original, Evan falls into a crippled sleep a year after the war began. Well, if at that very moment Evan was saving Edwin, then he most likely survived. But then the young lady thinks where the hell he could have gone, and the last time he was in the territories of the Holy Throne, so the girl wonders if he was caught using magic. Alice also understands that later she will need to send a letter there, after which she turns to Mikhail and tells him not to worry, because with him back, everything will be fine. The young man then replies that yes, and Edwin, seeing how the young lady is holding the guy's hand, also takes her hand in his. The girl then asks what is it, and when the young man looks at her expectantly, the main character tells him to come to her and then hugs him and thanks him for it, that he returned safe and sound. The young lady also turns to Mikhail and suggests that he also go there so they can all hug. However, the guy replies that he doesn't want to and that this guy is bad. The next morning, the young lady wakes up and realizes it's already noon. She slept well yesterday, though. It was the first time she'd spoken to the two of them in a long time, so time flew by. Then the young lady heard someone knocking on the door and asked if it was Anna. The young lady immediately opens the door and says that Anna is there and also asks about Edwin, but when the young lady opens her eyes, she sees that it is Edwin and asks what he's doing there. The young man replies that he was waiting for Alice to wake up, as it's not right to take such long breaks between meals. The young lady then thanks him and asks if he's eaten yet, then suggests they eat together. The guy then simply repeats the word together, and the young lady then asks if something is wrong. The young man touches her hair, and the main character asks if he's surprised by how much her hair has grown. The guy replies that yes, and they're beautiful, and Alice realizes that Mikhail thinks they look like a dog's tail. Meanwhile, the brunette turns to the young lady, and he claims that he will leave every lock of hair in his memory, to which the young lady only tells him not to waste his memory in vain, after which she thinks that the guy is practically glowing. At this point, Mikhail also approaches them and asks why they're standing in the doorway. The young woman then says the guy's just in time, and asks if he's in a rush again, then suggests grabbing a bite to eat. The young man then asks what she is talking about and says no, but then he gets a little embarrassed and asks why the girl is walking around like that. Alice replies that her opponents are waiting in her room, that he doesn't want to hear anything, so let her at least wash her face. but the girl claims that she washed her face before going to bed. At this time, Edwin turns to Alice and says that her eyelashes are stuck together, after which he unsticks them, and the main character is a little embarrassed. She thanks Edwin, and she understands that apparently they really are stuck together. But she feels a little ashamed, after which she immediately takes these two out. And he slams the door, after which he claims that they should wait for her because she will change her clothes and go out, after which the two do just that. But when they exchange glances, it's as if they're suggesting that each other get out of there. A short while later, the main character is already in her bakery. The maid then asks if the mistress is saying that Master Edwin has returned, and asks if he really arrived so soon. The young lady replies that yes, and it seems he arrived first, while the rest of the soldiers have a long way to go. They set up camp, and the guy finds it boring, which is why he came. Afterwards, the young lady also insists that the egg tart should be put out again. But the maid doesn't look very cheerful after this, and the main character asks what's wrong, and the woman replies that the guy was certainly full of charm as a child, but she can't even imagine how scary the gentleman has become since then. The main character also says that he's only gotten better looking, but the maid insists that her mistress's words don't inspire confidence. At that moment, someone enters the bakery and asks for a tiramisu. The main character then agrees and greets him. But she thinks how familiar this voice is, and when she turns around, it's the Duke's visit, and she almost screams his name, but the man tells her to be quiet. After that, he eats dessert and claims that the Duke's former chef worked on the desserts and the taste is even too good for such a small establishment. The heroine then asks if he wants a share of the profits, and the man insists that she's just so fond of jokes. The young lady then turns to the Duke and says that His Grace was supposed to lead the soldiers' march, and he asks them if he should have returned to the applause of their people. The man replies that it's all true, and asks the young lady why, while silently adding, why is he already here and sitting there picking at the cake? The man replies that he didn't want to attract attention to himself, and the young lady wonders if this is unusual and if he really came here leaving his conscience on the battlefield. At this time, the Duke turns to Alice Guinea and states that she is 17 years old this year and her birthday is on April 17th, and that she is also an Aries according to her zodiac sign. The main character then wonders if he really knows, after which she asks if he wants to see what is destined for her, and the man asks what she is talking about, after which the young lady replies that nothing, and let him continue. The Duke then claims that a victory banquet will be held at the palace in 2 weeks, and she'll be attending. The girl claims she doesn't even have an invitation, and then asks why she should go. The Duke claims he's about to formally introduce her to society. A short time later, the girl is already near a house and realizes she hasn't been there for a long time. After which she knocks, but no one answers her, and the young lady thinks that it is strange to believe the guy should be at home. After which the young lady only gets offended and screams for Mikhail to leave because she came. However, the young man then asks why she doesn't just break down the door. The main character then asks what that smell is and whether he's been drinking. However, the young man only asks why she showed up, to which the main character replies that she was worried and tormented by the question of why he took the day off, and it turns out he just has a hangover. The guy then replies that yes and asks if she is happy now, and the young lady replies that no and that's not all, after which she hands him a suitcase and asks her to forgive her. Then the young lady comes into the house and the guy asks what this means, and claims that he did not give permission. The main character then goes inside and realizes that nothing has changed at all and everything is in its place, just like 10 years ago when Evan left. After this, Mikhail just closes the door and remains silent, and the young lady asks if it isn't difficult to maintain all this alone without servants. After all, the house is not small, the young man replies that in any case he has no other concerns except her health. And in his free time he can do his own thing, after which the young man goes to the sofa and sits down on it. He claims to know that he looks like a fool and constantly sends letters to the Holy See and does not receive an answer. And he can't know if his brother will even return. Alice replies that it's not stupid at all, and she would say it's surprising because it's not Evan. He won't be happy to return to such a familiar house. The young man then simply turns around and asks what's there and if she bought anything. After all, she took it to the kitchen, and the girl replies that yes, and she will bring it now, after which she brings a cake. And when they eat it, the main character asks how he can see it from the cafe's new menu, and the guy replies that it's delicious. But then he asks why she came, and the young lady then asks what he just said, and the guy asks why she actually came and whether his house is really a coffee shop for her. The girl only claims that she enjoyed it, and the guy asks if she will continue to test his patience, after which the young lady says that it is fine and she has a request. After all, she's going to a banquet at the palace and asks if he can join her. The guy then asks if she's talking about the banquet and shouldn't a girl live as quietly as possible. And the main character replies that she thought so too, but the Duke claimed that he intended to introduce her to the public. The girl then asked what her friend was doing, and the man replied that it was so that she would officially become a member of the family. Now Mikhail is just silent, after which he asks what she thinks about this and whether it will be okay if Esteban joins the family. The main character replies that she doesn't know, and Mikhail asks if the guy knows. Alice insists he didn't say anything and probably doesn't yet. The young man then claims that he doesn't know, and if he had known, he wouldn't have kept silent. The young lady then remembers how the young man said that she was not brother and sister, after which she realizes that this happened in childhood and thinks what she should do if the guy hates her, because she's not particularly happy about it either, to be honest. At this time, Mikhail claims that he agrees, and when the young lady asks what this is about, he claims that he says that he doesn't mind becoming her partner. The main character then asks with a smile on her face if this is true, after which she thanks the guy, but then she suddenly remembers one episode from the novel. All the aristocrats whispered and claimed that this was unheard of, since in the entire history of the empire such a thing had never happened. They also asked how two men came to the banquet as a couple, and the main characters are now interested. Was Mikhail planning to go to the banquet with Edwin, but the guy just asks in shock if the girl really hit her head? At this time, one of the knights tells the gentleman something, and the brunette then asks if Alice will really attend the banquet, to which the knight replies that yes, and they want to officially introduce Lady Alice. Edwin then asks the knight if he is interested in what good this will do, but he doesn't know what to say. The brunette tells the guy to go and find out what he agrees to and claims that he is bowing out. At this time, the main character enters her room and lies down on the bed, thinking that she would just like to lie in bed all day, but then the girl suddenly sees some silhouette on her sofa and, in shock, thinks what it is. The young lady, frightened, also wonders if this is a new way of intimidating and that before they bothered her by knocking on the door and now they come in unceremoniously. After which, the young lady looks at the man lying on the sofa more closely and realizes that it is Edvan. The young lady also understands that she has already managed to get scared, but then does not understand why he is sleeping there. In the original, the young man invited Michael to a banquet after his ascension to the throne, and the original plot changed, but their relationship still hasn't gone that far. But even if so, they most likely want to be together, so the young lady says that the guy has grown up and no longer sleeps on the floor. The young lady also runs her hand through his hair, and then the young man opens his eyes and the main character realizes that he has woken up. The guy just grabs her hand and puts it to his face, after which the young lady asks what he is doing, and he realizes that he's most likely not fully awake. At this point, the young man turns to Alice, and he claims that he heard that she was going to a banquet, after which the young lady asks if he knows. And the guy asks if she has found a partner for herself, because if not, he will accompany her. The young lady then wonders if he's heard about introducing her as a family member and asserts that she's made up her mind. Edwin asks who she's going with, and the young lady, with a smile on her face, replies that she is with Mikhail, after which the young man looks at her a little coldly, and he asks her what she's talking about. The girl once again insists that she's going with Mikhail, after which the guy confirms. If she goes to the banquet, she will get a lot of attention, so he suggests taking Anna as a partner. The main character then thinks about what he is talking about, and realizes that in the original, the guy confidently entered the hall with Mikhail, and perhaps the lack of prejudice played a role, after which she claims that it is impossible to go with a partner of the same sex and he knows it. And the guy then claims that he will go with them, and the young lady is surprised. And Edwin. He claims that he is scared, after which he lies down on the young lady's shoulder and claims that it is for him. Accustomed to life in the tower and battle, darkness is much more familiar to him, and he is afraid of that. The people will stare at him at the reception. He also claims that he doesn't really want to go and hold a stranger's hand, so he asks Alice not to refuse him. The young lady, seeing him, is a little embarrassed, after which she claims that it's okay and the three of them can go in, to which the guy thanks her.